Chapter 128. C nodded slightly. He pulled Yun Jian past the two men and walked towards the changing room. The two men were left dumbfounded. F***CK, is the young master enlightened? He's even learned how to hold a woman's hand. One of the men rubbed his hands, a trace of surprise appearing on his handsome face. He couldn't hold it in any longer and said to the other man, Adam, the young master's matters aren't something you and I can casually discuss. Do your job well. The other man, who looked more composed, reminded him before turning to leave. The man called Adam stood there and clicked his tongue twice. He muttered to the more composed man, Go, 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 you're the most serious one. CE had a custom-made lace evening gown for Yun Jian. It was pure black and not revealing at all. This evening gown was designed by the world's top fashion designer and was one of a kind in the world. Its economic value couldn't be measured by money. After Yun Jian changed and came out, she saw that CE had already changed into a formal suit. CE's foundation was very good. His handsome face was flawless, his tall nose bridge and deep eyes exuded the aura of a king. The black suit clung to his muscular skin. When Yun Jian came out, CE's fair and slender fingers tugged at the tie of his suit. From the side he looked like a still and untainted figure in a painting. He was so handsome and delicate that there was nothing to nitpick about him. Even though Yun Jian had seen many handsome and delicate men in her previous life, none of them could compare to the one in front of her. She was stunned for a few seconds. What's wrong? Yun Jian only reacted when she heard a pleasant male voice. CE narrowed his eyes as he sized up the young lady in the black lace evening gown. Every time he met Yun Jian's eyes, he would suppress his distant feelings towards women and wanted to take a step closer to her. When he first discovered this, even he couldn't believe it. He knew himself very well. He hated women. Ever since he was young, as long as there were women around, he would feel nauseous. If a woman came close to him, he would feel extremely disgusted. This is a quirk. But it was different for Yun Jian. He could feel it deeply. Yun Jian's petite figure kept floating in front of him. That faint milky fragrance lingered at the tip of his nose, making him feel a little different. That was why he couldn't help but get close to her, and even hold her hand. Therefore, when CE saw Yun Jian's smooth and tender arms, the lace gown that accentuated her petite figure, and her well-developed twin peaks, he couldn't help but gulp. Let's go. Yun Jian moved her red lips and walked out directly. CE paused for a moment as the girl's fragrance dissipated into the distance. Then he strode after her. Country M, New York, the 39th floor of the Triangle Building. In the middle of the room, a dignified and imposing middle-aged man in his 40s was holding a glass of red wine and chatting amicably with a man of the same age in front of him. This dignified middle-aged man was called Si Chu. He was the head of the armaments family, Cold Pavilion. Without a doubt, he was also Si Yi's biological father. At this moment, Si Chu was chatting happily with the middle-aged man opposite him. Chapter 129. Si Chu followed the middle-aged man's gaze and saw a 17 or 18-year-old girl standing there. She was pretty and had an outstanding temperament among the group. Of course, as the leader of the Arms family, Si Chu did not care about the appearance of his future daughter-in-law. He cared about the marriage between the big families and the friendly relationship between the big families. He nodded at the middle-aged man and praised hypocritically the petite girl standing beside him, who was also extremely beautiful. She has a good temperament. The young girl was wearing a lace gown that outlined her petite figure. He patted the man's shoulder as he spoke. Revealed in front of everyone. Chuan's face lit up. She was beautiful and elegant. He moved closer when the two of them stood together. It was as if they were a match made in heaven. And my daughter, they were actually so compatible. Of course, it's a done deal. Si Chu replied with a laugh, and an absolute dumbfounded. Not only the three of them lowered his voice, but everyone present was mesmerized by Ce and Yun Jian's stunning appearance. How can he not agree to extricate themselves? Ce held Yun Jian's small hand and walked out of the elevator step by step. Speaking in front of everyone, Si Chu suddenly Yun Jian realized that he had only glanced at Si Chu when he walked in front of him. Speaking of his son, without saying a word, he pulled her to the side. However, he would never lower his head in front of outsiders. What kind of attitude Naturally, is this? He had to put on. How can you leave without saying a word when you see attitude? Where is your upbringing? Hearing Si Chu's affirmative tone, if I didn't know better, I would have thought that you were a bastard with a mother but no father. A man walked over and whispered in Si Chu's ear. Si Chu felt that he had lost face and moved his old face closer to Shuri Chuan. Si turned his head to look at Si Chu and said, he held Yun Jian's hand tightly and said, ask your daughter to come over. My mother is already dead. Let the two of them meet. That woman is not my mother. Shuri Chuan was happy when he heard this. When he said this, Yun Jian could clearly feel the coldness and loneliness in Si's voice. Laishiang had been waiting there for a long time. Chapter 130. When she saw her father waving at her, she hurriedly ran over. She was shocked. Her heart was filled with joy and nervousness like a young girl who was standing not far away from Si Chu and fell in love with him at first sight. The young man's handsome face kept appearing in her mind and she could not get it out of her mind. This banquet was probably used by Si's father to announce she swore that she would marry his engagement. On the other hand, it wasn't strange for upper-class families to use marriage to consolidate their interests. The two families had a mutual interest. Smiled. The upper-class aristocratic families usually liked to unite their families through marriage to strengthen the trust between them. Although it was the modern era, these old customs could not naturally help her. Beep. Nonsense. The only elevator beside the banquet hall opened. It's fine if you usually make a fuss, but today you even found a woman? Shuri Chuan. Are you trying to anger me to death? Her entire body was tense. Si Chu she even ran her fingers through a few strands of her hair. That his mother was already dead, imperfections would be exposed. Si Chu felt like he had been exposed. Only she knew the nervousness in her heart when she saw the person she was the head of the cold court. The moment the elevator doors opened, however, what everyone saw was after he married Si's mother, he divorced Si's mother in order to expand the cold court's power and influence. He then married the daughter of another armaments aristocratic family. At the same time, Si Chu also forced Si's mother to stay by his side. In the end, Si's mother became depressed and committed suicide due to depression. Today, in order to consolidate his position in the cold court, Si Chu planned to use Si's marriage to form a marriage alliance with the Shi family. But he didn't expect that Si would have such a huge reaction. He even found a woman to humiliate him in public. This made Si Chu, an internationally renowned armaments tycoon, completely furious. Brother Si, it's wrong of you to do this. Don't make uncle angry. Shi Laishiang looked at Yun Jian's and Si's intertwined hands. She dug her fingertips into her skin and played the role of the good guy. She spoke coyly to Si in a gentle voice. What are you? What does my business have to do with you? Si cast a sidelong glance at Shi Laishiang, not giving her any face at all. Shi Laishiang had originally planned to speak up after Si Chu had spoken. This way she could improve her image in front of Si Chu and let Si see her gentle side and have a good impression of her. But who would have thought that Si wouldn't give her any face at all? She looked at Yun Jian, who was standing next to Si, and she became even angrier. Her eyes turned red because the person she had been longing for had said such things to her. Si Chu felt humiliated at once. He knew that he couldn't control his son, so he pointed at Yun Jian and threatened her. Which family's young lady are you from? Rong family? Wen family? Fong family? I don't care which family's young lady you're from. Get out of here now or your family will disappear from the international stage forever because of you. The aristocratic families that Si Chu had pointed out were all internationally renowned big shots. It was obvious that he thought that Yun Jian was a young lady from one of these aristocratic families. Yun Jian was amused when she heard that. She narrowed her eyes and met Si Chu's murderous gaze fearlessly in front of everyone. Her red lips curled up. I'm a young lady from the Yun family. Let me introduce myself. My name is Yun Jian. I live in Country Z's Longmen City. My mom is a waitress at a hotel. Country Z's Longmen City. A waitress at a hotel. Everyone latched on to these words. Si Chu stomped his feet, almost vomiting blood from anger. He thought that the woman his son had found would be a socialite of the upper class even if she wasn't from an aristocratic family. Chapter 131. Si Chu was furious. He did not threaten Yun Jian anymore. Instead, he waved his hand and called for his bodyguards, intending to chase her out. Someone chase her out. If Yun Jian was a young lady from an aristocratic family, Si Chu might have given her some face. However, Yun Jian had said it herself. She was just a person with no status. Si Chu was naturally fearless and prepared to chase her out on the spot. He had lost all his face today. There was a saying that one should not wash one's dirty linen in public. However, after today's incident he had no face left. A few bodyguards in black suits and sunglasses surrounded Yun Jian and Si. "I'll see who dares to touch my people." Si sneered. He calmly pulled out a pistol from the holster at his waist, pulled the trigger and pointed it at Si Chu. He actually wanted to kill him. Had already decided to shed all pretense of cordiality. Being cut by a knife. Ever since Si could remember, he had never acknowledged Si Chu as his father. Pulled out his gun. He had not even called him dad and afraid of his handsome posture. In his impression, she swore in her heart that father was the murderer who had directly forced his mother to commit suicide. She was just an insignificant person. That his mother had committed suicide due to depression. Si Chu had always locked his mother up and kept her at home in the name of love. A woman with a tight figure walked out of the elevator side by side with a man in his 20s in a blue floor-length evening gown. Si Chu was a person who cared about his reputation. A group of people followed behind the woman and the man. He did not allow outsiders to know about his family's dirty linen. On the contrary, they were full of vigor. Had suffered from depression. Even Si Chu could not allow to take a second look when he saw these people. When he saw the leader of the group and could not bear the torture in a blue evening gown, he was shocked. She committed suicide. The woman's exposed left wrist was imprinted with a skull symbol, who was only 5 years old at the time. On her wrist was the symbol of the kosher bloody corpse of his mother. This woman was actually a member of the kosher mercenaries. Since then, he had developed an extreme sense of disgust and alienation toward all women. It looked as if it had been cut by a knife, and it made people shiver. It was not until he met Yun Jian that he realized that she was different from other girls and women. If he guessed correctly, he did not hate Yun Jian. This man was in a cooperative relationship with the kosher mercenaries. He had a different feeling towards her. He was one of the 4 leaders of the underground assassin organization. The Inhan organization was so angry that his hands were trembling. If the name of the kosher mercenaries made people shiver, then the Inhan organization was a hellish another aristocratic family for the sake of expanding cold pavilions and agents were from the Inhan organization. Today, the Cold Court had become the vanguard of the world's military families. But his most beloved was the king of secret agents in her previous life. He had only loved one woman all these years, and that was slaying God. But for she was indeed a secret agent trained by the world's top underground assassin organization. He had countless mistresses in his life. Of course, it wasn't that he didn't have any other sons or daughters. Due to her extraordinary capability, was the only one he had chosen as the successor of the Cold Court. Was the only secret agent in Si Chu's history to successfully break free from the organization's control. At the same time, she started killing at the age of 12 and left in Hun group when she was 14. In the same year, she killed the previous boss of kosher mercenaries and developed her own force. Therefore, the king of secret agents, slaying God, was known as a legend in the underworld. The only one who could be mentioned in the same breath as the king of secret agents, slaying God, was the leader of an Hun group. The leader of an Hun group was a mystery. No one had ever seen him, not even knowing if he was a man or a woman, old or young. The only ones who had seen the leader of an Hun group were the 4 leaders of the organization. Shuang was one of them. As for the kosher mercenaries' forces, there was no need to mention them. An Hun group and kosher mercenaries were 2 major organizations that monopolized the entire underground organization. Even Si Chu, the master of Cold Pavilion, a military family, had to lower his head in fear when he saw people from these 2 major assassin organizations. When Si Chu saw the woman in a beautiful blue evening gown and the man with a huge scar on his neck, his legs turned to jelly. He could not care less about his son, Ce, as he hurried to greet them. His smile was stiff, but it was forced as he extended his hand to shake their hands. What a rare guest. We welcome both of you to attend tonight's banquet. Si Chu was the one who had arranged the banquet. His goal was to arrange a marriage between his son and Shurichuan's daughter. He did not expect the kosher mercenaries and an Hun group to be here, so he was so embarrassed that his face was about to burst. However, the woman in the blue evening gown walked past Si Chu and went straight to Yun Jian, ignoring his goodwill. She stood in front of Yun Jian and greeted respectfully, "Sister Jian." The woman in the blue evening gown was obviously Snake Lizard, who had changed into the black robe that covered her entire body to reveal her sexy figure. The 2 words Snake Lizard caused everyone present to suck in a deep breath. Most of the people there were businessmen and politicians from prominent families and families. The biggest symbol of Wuxia mercenaries was the skull mark on their wrists. It was a mark that could not be imitated by outsiders. Someone who could make Wuxia mercenaries stand in front of her and greet her as Sister Jian respectfully was a rare sight. How could this girl, who claimed to be from a small town in Z country and whose mother was an ordinary hotel attendant, be an ordinary person? Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. She was related to kosher mercenaries? Yun Jian nodded slightly at Snake Lizard. She did not expect to meet Snake Lizard here. Snake Lizard had kept a low profile when she returned to Longmen City the last time. She was dressed very tightly, so the skull mark on her wrists was not exposed. Today Snake Lizard had changed into a blue evening gown. Her enchanting female body was faintly discernible. At the same time, the skull mark on her wrist was also intimidating. The girl in front of him was related to kosher mercenaries? More importantly, the kosher mercenaries who did not even care about Si Chu was calling Yun Jian, Sister Jian, respectfully. What did this mean? Si Chu started to twitch. Shi Laixiang was annoyed when she saw everyone's attention on Yun Jian. Chapter 133. When Shi Laixiang said this, she even shook Shurichuan's hand and acted like a spoiled child. However, Shi Laixiang's words attracted everyone's attention. Let the internationally famous assassin organization that kills without blinking an eye be polite? This Shi Lixiang must be stupid. Was she that lucky? Everyone snorted, but in front of Yun Jian and the others, no one dared to say anything for fear of implicating themselves. When Shi Yichuan heard his daughter say this, he was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. He lowered his voice and shouted at Shi Lixiang, "Xiang, shut up." Unexpectedly, Shi Lixiang did not notice the change in the atmosphere at all. She shouted even more confidently, "Dad, they were in the wrong. They were rude. That's what you've always taught us. We have to be polite. Those who don't have manners are a bunch of lowly and uncultured people. These kinds of people will never be able to show their faces." Shi Lixiang's words were clear and logical. Even she felt that it was reasonable. When Shi Yichuan heard his daughter's words, he was so scared that he almost turned into a puddle of water. Of course, he could tell that his daughter was scolding Yun Jian in a roundabout way. "Shi Lixiang, shut your mouth." Shi Yichuan's trembling finger pointed fiercely at his daughter, even roaring out her full name. However, he could not explain it to his daughter now. If they went against the Kosha mercenaries, the Shi family would probably be wiped out. Because the Kosha mercenaries was an organization made up of international elite assassins, their hands were stained with countless blood. They were so powerful that they were intimidating and terrifying. Simply put, the Kosha mercenaries could wipe out the Shi family effortlessly. "Dad, you're yelling at me again." Shi Lixiang felt even more wronged. At the same time, she felt even more indignant that Yun Jian had stolen her limelight at the banquet. Yun Jian naturally heard the conversation between Shi Lixiang and Shi Yichuan. She curled her lips and glanced over, but she did not say anything. She did not care about Shi Lixiang's words at all. She had seen many people like Shi Lixiang in her past life. If she killed Shi Lixiang just because of one sentence, then there would be too many people in this world who would want to kill her. Of course, if Shi Lixiang made any further moves, she would definitely make her regret being born. Si Chu was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. It was too late for regrets. He never thought that Yun Jian could make the Kosha mercenaries bow down to her. As soon as he thought of what he had just said to Yun Jian and what he was going to do, he felt his hair stand on end. "Miss Yun, we were blind just now and said something wrong. I hope you won't take it to heart." Si Chu was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. His attitude towards Yun Jian had changed completely. Si Yi's sword-like eyebrows flashed. He stood beside Yun Jian and smiled at her. He sneered at Si Chu's attitude. At the same time, he exchanged glances with Shuiying, who was standing not far away. "What if I insist on taking it to heart?" Yun Jian glanced at Si Chu and smiled evilly. It made people's hearts tremble. Si Chu's heart thumped and he was sweating profusely. After all, he had been working for many years and had experienced many big situations. He hurriedly smoothed things over and pretended to be calm. "Miss Yun's temperament is extraordinary. One look and I can tell that you are a magnanimous person. Of course you won't take it to heart." This sentence made it clear. If Yun Jian took it to heart, then she would appear to be narrow-minded. Yun Jian smiled sweetly. She pursed her lips and followed Si Chu's words. "Of course I won't take it to heart." Pausing for a moment, she curled her lips again. "But I'm very unhappy. I want something from you." "What is it?" Si Chu and Shi Yichuan heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 134. Since when did he become a thing? Si Yi's twinkling eyes narrowed, the corners of his lips curling upwards. However, after hearing Yun Jian's words, he felt an inexplicable sense of satisfaction. In contrast to Si Yi, Si Chu, Shi Yichuan, and Shi Lixiang's faces darkened. Si Chu and Shi Yichuan had intended to get close to each other by marrying their children, but after Yun Jian's words, both of them turned pale. Shi Lixiang was even paler. When she looked at Yun Jian again, she wanted nothing more than to tear her into pieces. Si Chu and Shi Yichuan knew that if they became enemies with the Kosha mercenaries because of this, both of their families would be removed from the international scene. Shi Yichuan, on the other hand, was afraid that his precious daughter would cause more trouble if he stayed any longer, so he made up a random excuse and left the banquet in a hurry. "Cough, since you and you are truly in love, then I shouldn't break you up." Si Chu tried to smooth things over. Today's matter was unexpected, but even so, a sly old fox like Si Chu could quickly minimize the impact of this matter on him. Moreover, it was uncertain whether his son, Si Yi, would still be together with Yun Jian when the time came. It wasn't too late to bring up this matter after today. When she heard Si Chu say, "truly in love," Yun Jian's eyelids twitched and she blinked. The banquet finally came to an end. Snake. Lizard left the banquet hall to attend to her own matters. Yun Jian walked side by side with Si. Suddenly, she reached out and poked Si's arm, winking mischievously as she teased, "I even sacrificed my reputation to help you just now. You should at least thank me." Those who knew Yun Jian well knew that she didn't joke often. This was a rare occasion when Yun Jian was in the mood to joke with Si. "I never thank people." Si looked at Yun Jian playfully. Suddenly, her eyes became sharp and her deep eyes lit up under the street lights. "But," he paused and looked at Yun Jian from head to toe. "You can repay me with your body." Yun Jian was completely dumbfounded. She never thought that the usually cold and arrogant Si would have such a playboy side. However, before she could think any further, a man in his 20s suddenly walked out from the darkness. The long scar on the man's neck left a deep impression. The person who came was Shuang. Shuang saw that Yun Jian was also here. He paused for a moment but still went up to Si and said, "Young master." Yun Jian was stunned. She knew very well that Shuang was one of the 4 leaders of the Inhun organization. This was because she was an agent trained by the Inhun organization in her previous life. "He's one of your men?" Yun Jian asked the question that was bothering her. Si did not hide it at all as he answered, "Yes." Yun Jian did not ask further after that. "There's no outsider here. Just say it." Si glanced at Shuang from the corner of his eyes. Si's words implied that Yun Jian was not an outsider. Shuang nodded and said, "There's a change in the organization." Si could already tell what had happened from the 5 words. He turned to look at Yun Jian, his handsome face tilted slightly to show her an exquisite outline. "I have something to do. Looks like I can't go back to Longmen City with you. You go back first." For some reason, when Yun Jian heard what he said, it felt like there was something going on between them. Her cheeks heated as she nodded slightly. Si then sent Yun Jian to his private jet considerately before leaving with Shuang. The private jet took off immediately. As they were more familiar with the journey back, it only took them 8 hours to return to Country Z. Chapter 135. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Yun Jian arrived home on time and carried her bag back to school for the weekend's evening self-study session. When the evening self-study session ended, Chin Sini turned around and patted her bulging bag, grinning at Yun Jian. "Jian, I bet you didn't bring any snacks, did you?" "It's okay though, haha, I stuffed my bag full. We'll eat together tomorrow." Not only did the scene of Yun Jian shooting Shiniji's hand the other day not make Chin Sini afraid of distancing herself from her, she was even more affectionate toward her. Yun Jian's lips curled into a smile. Master. Before his seat had even warmed up after class, Zhang Xiaofeng rushed to Yun Jian's seat and said hot-bloodedly, "Master, you must teach me real skills this time." "I'm always ready." In fact, Yun Jian had never promised Zhang Xiaofeng to teach him anything. It was Zhang Xiaofeng who was the one asking her for advice. This time, however, Yun Jian did not evade Zhang Xiaofeng's request. Her smile faded and she looked sharp and serious. "You really want to learn from me?" When Zhang Xiaofeng heard Yun Jian agreeing to his request, he nodded without hesitation. Yes. His reaction was so quick that it was as if he was afraid that Yun Jian would go back on her word. "All right, I'll teach you." Yun Jian's eyes shifted, her initial smile gone. Slaying God had never taken in a disciple in her previous life. All this while, Zhang Xiaofeng had been calling her master, but she had never agreed to his request. Today she planned to make an exception. Yun Jian paused for a moment, and a vicious aura emanated from her body. She looked at Zhang Xiaofeng and said to him in a fierce tone, without the slightest hint of joking, "Be my disciple. I will train you and make you a first-class expert, but the premise is that you are not allowed to complain no matter how hard it is. No matter how hard it is, you can only swallow it in your stomach. If you can't do it, you can say no now. But if you stop halfway, I'll let you know how close you are to death." Yun Jian didn't seem to be joking at all. There was only one meaning she wanted to express. Once you enter this circle, you can't leave. Even if you die, you have to kneel until the end. What's more, if her disciple couldn't even endure this bit of hardship, what right did she have to stand on the same side as her? Slaying God would never accept weaklings around her. Zhang Xiaofeng's eyelids twitched when he heard Yun Jian's words. He knew that Yun Jian was a woman of her words. However, he clenched his fists and said to Yun Jian with determination, "I can do it." "All right." Yun Jian smiled at him and said, "See you at the field tomorrow at 4 o'clock in the morning." 4 o'clock? Zhang Xiaofeng was stunned. 4 o'clock in the south was not even dawn yet. Yun Jian shot him a fierce glare and Zhang Xiaofeng immediately swallowed his words. Chin Sini watched from the side and snickered. Early the next morning the sky was still dark. As expected, Zhang Xiaofeng was caught by Yun Jian for training in the field. Zhang Xiaofeng didn't have any foundation in killing moves. Fortunately, his body was flexible and he said that he had practiced judo and taekwondo before. Yun Jian made him run around the field. She didn't want to train him to be an expert in fighting. Instead, she wanted him to be someone who could protect himself and kill a high-level assassin. After a whole morning of training, Zhang Xiaofeng was exhausted. However, he obeyed what he said earlier and didn't complain at all. Both of them only walked out of the field and headed to the classroom at 5:50 a.m. At 6:20 a.m. a bus contracted by the school arrived outside the school. The teachers arranged seats for the students one by one and the bus headed to the location of the spring outing, the forest park. Sitting in the bus, Yun Jian looked at the youthful and excited faces of the students around her and could not help but smile. Chapter 136. Forest Park was a first-class botanical park in Longmen City. There were professional gardeners taking care of the flora and fauna in the park. At the same time, there were mini-game venues and an empty plot of land for tourists to have a barbecue. Therefore, there was an endless stream of tourists visiting during the cool seasons of spring and autumn. Once they got off the bus, the teachers allowed the students to do whatever they wanted. Chen Sini pulled Yun Jian along as she looked around and walked quickly. Zhang Xiaofeng, who was behind them, carried 2 heavy school bags and ran to catch up. He could not help grumbling to Chen Sini, F***CKU Chen Sini? These bags are so heavy and you have the nerve to ask me to carry them for you? Aha, just take it as training for you. Here I'm helping you train your physique better. You should be thanking me. Chen Sini stomped her feet and chuckled cheekily. Jian, there's a game of shooting balloons with toy guns over there. You can even win a big doll if you hit the jackpot. You're so accurate, let's go over and play. Chen Sini tugged Yun Jian and ran over excitedly. Zhang Xiaofeng wiped his sweat and groaned inwardly as he carried the 2 heavy school bags. In the end, he gritted his teeth and followed them angrily. The balloon shooting game had only become popular recently. It was available in some parks, scenic spots, or large entertainment venues. Little boys liked to play with toy pistols, sniper rifles, and rifles. This balloon shooting game used this kind of toy rifle to shoot balloons. The bullet fired by the rifle was only a small bullet the size of a soybean. It was not a real bullet and had no lethality, so even if it hit, there was no danger at all. Of course, there was a limit to the number of bullets used in the balloon shooting game. After paying the corresponding amount, the player could shoot 15 bullets and burst a few balloons with each bullet. The corresponding prize would be given according to the number of balloons burst. If each of the 15 bullets could burst a balloon, the player could win the biggest prize, a big doll about a meter in size. Of course, these toy rifles had been tampered with by the boss, so the bullets fired from them were all off target. Otherwise, if everyone got shot, the boss would definitely suffer a loss. Boss, we want to play once. Chen Sini pulled Yun Jian to stand in front of the balloon shooting game table, paid the money, and giggled. The boss was a fat, middle-aged man with a bald head. When he saw that Qin Sini and Yun Jian were playing his game, he rubbed his hands and smiled so widely that his eyes almost became a line. Reaching out to take the money, he was secretly happy, but his mouth said, "Okay." His balloon shooting game was designed to earn the most money from students like Qin Sini and Yun Jian. At this moment he was naturally overjoyed. He thought, "Look, 2 more female students have come to give me money. How could people like them hit the jackpot?" At that time, as long as there was a small prize, he would make a profit again. Since Yun Jian and Qin Sini were the prettiest and there was also Zhang Xiaofeng, a popular figure in school, the balloon shooting game gradually attracted a group of students who came to watch the show. "Jian Jian, you do it." Qin Sini passed the toy rifle to Yun Jian and pointed at a big doll excitedly, telling Yun Jian, "Jian Jian, you can do it. I want that big doll, it's so cute." Yun Jian smiled and took the toy rifle, but she was not ready to aim. "Sis Sini, why didn't you let me have that doll if you want it?" A man's teasing voice interrupted the conversation and said to Qin Sini, "Sis Sini, why didn't you let me have that doll if you wanted it?" Everyone looked over at the voice and saw a good-looking boy who was slightly tall and slender walking over. He went to Qin Sini arrogantly and looked at the toy rifle in Yun Jian's hand before he spoke to Qin Sini again in a boastful tone. "Sis Sini, have you forgotten that I've officially learned marksmanship from a master? If you want this doll, you can't let a little beauty shoot it for you instead of me." Chapter 137. As the boy spoke, he reached for the toy rifle in Yun Jian's hand. With a frown, Yun Jian turned her hand away and avoided the boy's hand. The boy did not feel awkward as he chuckled and studied Yun Jian from head to toe. "Pretty girl, you won't be able to hit a balloon with a gun like this. Why don't I teach you how to do it, Ling Yichen, aren't you annoying? We're having fun on our own. Are you done?" Qin Sini could not help yelling at the boy. Ling Yichen was the son of Qin Sini's father's business partner. He could be considered her childhood playmate as well. However, due to Ling Yichen's boastful personality, Qin Sini did not like to play with him since they were young. Ling Yichen was also known as a playboy in school. Due to his good looks and prominent family background, many girls admired him. He was a boy who changed girlfriends more frequently than he changed clothes. It was because of this that Qin Sini kept a respectful distance from him. "Aya, Sister Sini, who are we? Don't make it sound like we're so distant." Ling Yichen was indeed a master flirt. He managed to turn the awkward situation around with just a few sentences. In spite of it, Ling Yichen's dark eyes were fixed on Yun Jian as he spoke to Qin Sini, looking like he was deep in thought. Qin Sini was dumbfounded for a moment before she realized what was going on. Was Ling Yichen trying to set his sights on Jian Jian? She quickly pulled Yun Jian behind her and said to Ling Yichen, "Ling Yichen, don't think I don't know what you're thinking. Jian Jian is my friend. Don't you dare set your sights on her." "That's right. Sini, your cousin supports you." Zhang Xiaofeng chimed in from the side. It was rare for the siblings to be united for once. The atmosphere then turned a little strange. Yun Jian blinked and looked at Qin Sini and Zhang Xiaofeng, who were protecting her like a treasure. She couldn't help but grin. "Look at you, Sini. You're talking as if I'm a gangster. Do I look like such a rascal to you?" Ling Yichen laughed and continued to bicker with Qin Sini in his unique teasing voice. "You." Just as Qin Sini was about to flare up at Ling Yichen, Yun Jian turned her delicate face to Qin Sini and asked, "Which doll do you want?" As she spoke, she weighed the toy rifle in her hand. It was only then that Qin Sini regained her senses. Exhaling in relief, she snorted at Ling Yichen and smiled at Yun Jian, pointing at a big bunny doll. "Jian Jian, I want that big bunny." "Okay." Yun Jian narrowed her eyes, a clean smile forming on her lips. The crowd was displeased with Yun Jian's confidence. Someone even yelled out, "How can you get this big doll just because you want it? Unless you shoot 15 balloons. Don't talk like you're a sharpshooter. Can you guarantee that you'll hit the balloon every time you shoot?" The disgruntled voice came from Lu Rongrong, who hated Yun Jian to the core. Ling Yichen was annoyed that Yun Jian ignored her right after she opened her mouth, but he had always been a patient man when it came to beautiful women. Ling Yichen flipped his hair coolly. Seeing Lu Rongrong's rude remarks to Yun Jian, he was about to step in and save the damsel in distress to help Yun Jian and make Yun Jian change her opinion of him instantly. All he saw was Yun Jian looking at Lu Rongrong with a grin. She lifted her chin slightly, her hand that held the toy rifle raised and fired at the balloons without even looking at the cloth that held them. Bang, bang, bang! The sound of balloons exploding when they were hit by the gun echoed in everyone's ears. The girl with the toy rifle did not even look at the cloth. She was shooting blindly. 15 bullets, not a single one missed. Chapter 138. At this moment, even Qin Sini and Zhang Xiaofeng, who had seen Yun Jian's marksmanship before, were stunned. She could actually shoot balloons blindly, and not a single one of the 15 bullets missed. Only someone who was very familiar with guns could do this. And she, Yun Jian, was just an ordinary student. The surroundings were quiet, especially Ling Yichen. He put on a what the f***ck expression and stood there in a daze, not even moving an inch. On the other hand, it was Lu Rongrong's first time witnessing Yun Jian's skills. She was dumbfounded on the spot. At this moment she didn't even think about her own trick anymore. Her eyes only revealed shock and fear. "I'm so sorry, I accidentally hit all of them." Yun Jian smiled and looked at the crowd. She didn't feel that there was anything wrong with what she said. However, the crowd who had watched from the beginning to the end knew that Yun Jian's words were meant for Lu Rongrong and Ling Yichen. Even the thick-skinned Lu Rongrong and Ling Yichen couldn't help but smile at this. Zhang Xiaofeng and Qin Sini snickered at the side, especially Qin Sini. She even gave Yun Jian a thumbs up. Then Qin Sini asked the shop owner for a big bunny doll. The shop owner's face was bitter, and his heart was filled with regret. However, in front of so many people, he didn't dare to go back on his word and refused to give Qin Sini the big doll. If he went back on his word in front of everyone, who would dare to play his game of shooting balloons? Then how would he earn money? The shop owner's face drooped, and he slowly and unwillingly handed the big bunny doll to Qin Sini. Qin Sini held the big bunny doll happily. She even shook the big bunny doll at Ling Yichen and made a funny face. In the end, Lu Rongrong ran away with her tail between her legs. Before she left, she even flashed a wicked smile. Whenever she thought of the mysterious woman she met last night, who said that she would help her teach Yun Jian a lesson, she couldn't help but feel happy. Moreover, that mysterious woman said that as long as she lured Yun Jian to her place today, she would teach Yun Jian a lesson. Lu Rongrong couldn't help but snicker in her heart. Yun Jian, you're the one who provoked me." Lu Rongrong cursed inwardly for a while and revealed an evil smile. She had already thought of a solution. Forest Park was a scenic spot located in a primeval forest. Later generations had only transformed the forest, but the scenery in the park was all from nature. Therefore it gave people a pristine feeling, allowing people to breathe in waves of fresh air while standing in it. After the balloon shooting game, Yun Jian, Qin Sini, and the others sat on a tranquil lawn in the park. The surrounding trees provided shade, and the branches and leaves of the trees acted as a shelter, so they were not afraid of being exposed to the scorching sun at noon. Not only did Ling Yichen not leave because of that incident, he even shamelessly followed Yun Jian and the rest. Yun Jian and the rest did not purposely stop him. They just treated him as if he did not exist. Qin Sini sat for a while and opened countless bags of snacks. The snacks were dry in her mouth and she even drank a lot of water in the morning, so she felt the urge to pee now. Jian, I'm going to the washroom. You stay here. You have to keep an eye on the rest of the snacks. We can't let the two dumb pigs, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen, eat them no matter what. Qin Sini declared her sovereignty over the snacks domineeringly with her hands on her hips and turned to run to the washroom. Yun Jian could not help smiling with her lips pressed together. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen, who were called out, had their lips twitched instead. It was only about 25 minutes later that Qin Sini had yet to return from the washroom. Yun Jian could not help frowning. The washroom was not far from here. Even if Qin Sini wanted to go to the washroom, she should not have taken so long. Sini didn't fall into a trap, did she? Ah. Zhang Xiaofeng broke the silence with a chuckle, stuffing a mouthful of chips into his mouth. No. Yun Jian looked down and stood up abruptly to walk to the washroom. What's wrong? Zhang Xiaofeng stopped teasing as well, sensing the unusual atmosphere in Yun Jian. At this moment, a girl ran over from outside the lawn, panting. She was a girl in her class who did not like to talk much, but she was running frantically. She ran to Yun Jian and the rest in fear and shouted timidly, "Qin Sini, she was..." The girl could not catch her breath. She took 2 deep breaths and continued, "She's been taken away by a group of cruel people. They look like gangsters. It's so scary. I met Qin Sini in the washroom just now. We came out of the washroom together and that group of people rushed up and took her away." Sob, sob, sob. Chapter 139. What? As soon as the girl said that, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen, who were sitting on the lawn, jumped up. Although the two of them often bickered with Qin Sini, they still treated Qin Sini as their own sister at critical moments. Therefore, when they heard the girl say that Qin Sini had been kidnapped by a group of unknown villains, their faces immediately turned green. Which direction did she go? In contrast, Yun Jian was much calmer as she asked the girl. The girl still hadn't recovered from her fear, but she still pointed in a direction. She was still in a state of sobbing. Yun Jian lifted her feet and walked in that direction. After a few steps, she began to run. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen couldn't care less about the pile of snacks on the lawn. They lifted their feet and chased after Yun Jian. However, even though the two of them ran with all their might, they still couldn't catch up to Yun Jian. Zhang Xiaofeng was already used to this kind of thing, but Ling Yichen was different. Yun Jian's marksmanship had already left him speechless. Now even her running was as fast as flying. Ling Yichen couldn't help but wonder if Yun Jian had been in the army. Otherwise, how could she have such marksmanship and speed? Yun Jian was faster than Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen when she reached the toilet where Qin Sini had been kidnapped. She looked around and narrowed her eyes. It was too late to chase after her now. Qin Sini must have been taken out of the forest park by now. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen ran to Yun Jian's side, panting. Ling Yichen couldn't help but be surprised when he saw that Yun Jian was running so fast without panting. "Master, what should we do now?" Zhang Xiaofeng asked anxiously. After all, he was born into a rich family and had never encountered such a situation before. Naturally, he was anxious and scared. "Let's call the police," Ling Yichen suggested. "It's too late." By the time the police started their investigation,
could keep up with
it would
the trend,
be too late, which meant that his
Yun
family
Jian
was
turned her
indeed
head
rich.
and said to Zhang
Beep,
Xiaofeng
beep,
and Ling
beep.
Yichen.
The call was
Compared
picked
to
up
the two of
immediately.
them,
She was
after the
fearless
call
in the
was
face of
connected,
danger. There was no
Qin
sound from
Sini
the
was
other
directly
side.
kidnapped.
Yun Jian's
Yun
call was
Jian
directly
felt that
to
this
the
matter was
headquarters
not
of
so
the Kosher
simple.
Mercenaries
Do you have a
intelligence
cell phone?
team. The
Yun
Kosher
Jian looked at
Mercenaries
Zhang
intelligence
Xiaofeng.
team was
She didn't
distributed
bring her
all over
phone,
the world,
mainly because
even
it was
if there were some
inconvenient for
changes
her to
in the
go on a
local
trip
feng
today.
shui of various
To put it
countries,
simply, she
the
was too
intelligence
lazy to
team
bring
would
it.
also collect
Yes,
information.
yes.
Qin
Zhang
Sini had been
Xiaofeng
kidnapped.
hurriedly took out a
Yun
mobile
Jian
phone
would
from his
ask the
pocket.
intelligence
He
team
didn't
to
ask what
investigate
Yun Jian
thoroughly
was going
and
to
get the
do.
news as soon as
He
possible.
didn't know why he had
At
such
the
a
same
feeling,
time,
as if
the
as long as
intelligence
Yun
team
Jian
of the
was
Kosher
here,
Mercenaries
this matter
would
would
not
be
speak
resolved
first
safely.
when they answered the phone.
Yun Jian took the
To
phone.
kill is to stop.
Her
To
nimble
become a
fingers
god.
pressed a few
Yun
buttons on the
Jian
phone
opened
and
her
made a
mouth
call.
and uttered the code
There were
for
no
intelligence
touchscreen
gathering
phones in
with
this
the
era,
intelligence
and
team in
Zhang
fluent
Xiaofeng's
English.
phone was from the Nokia brand.
Nokia was a brand that had become popular recently. Chapter 140. After Yun Jian gave the code, the other end of the phone was silent for a few seconds. Then, a low and strange female voice sounded. "What instructions do you have?" Yun Jian knew from the voice that this person was the head of the Kosher Mercenaries intelligence team, Diani. Diani was the head of the Kosher Mercenaries. The intelligence team that she led had always been accurate. Many international business tycoons had bought intelligence from Diani at high prices. The price had even risen to hundreds of millions of US dollars, all for the sake of obtaining accurate information. The intelligence team took up a significant portion of the Kosher Mercenaries' financial income. This could not be helped without the guidance of the intelligence team's head, Diani. "Help me investigate a person." Yun Jian relayed her location and the process of the incident in English. Soon, Diani found the information and reported it to her. Actually, as soon as Yun Jian said the code, Diani already knew that Yun Jian was her superior. However, the intelligence team had always been tight-lipped and never asked about such things. They only knew how to search for information and then report it to the other party. Until Yun Jian hung up and handed the phone back to Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were still in a daze. They did not understand what Yun Jian said at all. They only knew that she called a foreigner and that the two of them were talking in English. However, at this critical moment, why did she call a foreigner? Yun Jian was already walking forward. The two of them hurriedly followed her footsteps. Yun Jian's lips curled slightly. She reached out and tucked the loose strands of hair behind her ear. She said, "They kidnapped Cindy in a car. The car plate number is Dragon A 50855. How did you know the car plate number?" Ling Yichen exclaimed. Yun Jian had only made a phone call. How could she have found out the other party's car plate number? This was illogical. The two of them were shocked and terrified. Yun Jian only smiled faintly. The members of the Wuxia mercenaries intelligence team were scattered all over the world. The number of members was uncountable. In other words, there is a high possibility that someone you know is a member of the Wuxia mercenaries intelligence organization, hiding in the city or between the cities. His job was to constantly search for changing information. What's more, the intelligence team didn't just rely on manpower to gather information. They could use any electronic products, and they could even use mobile phones to enter a wide range of systems in the shortest amount of time. However, after excluding the ordinary vehicles in the area, the final result was obtained. Now that we only know the license plate number, how are we going to find Cindy? Zhang Xiaofeng asked the key question. Yun Jian, on the other hand, narrowed her eyes and turned her head to the side. The girl's delicate eyebrows twitched as she coldly said, "Based on the license plate number, do you think we can't find the other party's address?" Based on the license plate number, ordinary people would not be able to find the owner's home address. However, the public security organs of some departments could search for it. But don't forget that there is another type of person who can, hackers. Yun Jian was a hacker herself. She was proficient in computer programming, assassination, and explosives. However, this time, Yun Jian didn't need to check the license plate number and the owner's home address. Diane had already told her. However, Yun Jian didn't explain this to Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen. Now wasn't the right time to do so. Then where is Cindy now? Zhang Xiaofeng only wanted to know this now. Yun Jian took a step forward with her long, slender legs. Then she paused and said, "The premium casino." Chapter 141. The finest casino was a casino in itself, where all the gamblers gathered together. The casino itself belonged to the second largest mafia group in Longmen City, the Nine Valleys Gang. There were two major mafia groups in Longmen City. The first was Dragon Head Gang while the second was the Nine Valleys Gang. Su Ziqian's Dragon Head Gang had tens of thousands of brothers and owned all the bars and night markets in Longmen City. Su Ziqian was also a member of the Kosha mercenaries, so his position as a mafia boss was secure. However, the second largest mafia group in Longmen City, the Nine Valleys Gang, was not to be underestimated. Other than Dragon Head Gang, the Nine Valleys Gang was the second largest mafia group. Even if they did not have tens of thousands of brothers, they were close to this number. Moreover, he had divided many regions. Even Longmen City's top casino, the famous Prime Casino, belonged to the Nine Valleys Gang. As the saying goes, a mountain cannot accommodate two tigers. As the underworld boss, Su Ziqian naturally wanted to eliminate the Nine Valleys Gang, the only big gang that could threaten him. In spite of this, he did not have the strength to do so. The Kosha mercenaries could send someone to help him win a match, but they would not go to such lengths to eliminate the Nine Valleys Gang that was a threat to him, a mere mafia boss of Longmen City. It was unrealistic. In addition, the Nine Valleys Gang's influence was not weak, especially in recent years when they had gained more power. Su Ziqian could no longer eliminate them with his Dragon Head Gang's influence alone, so he could only let them continue to develop. Yun Jian and the other two did not have time to inform their homeroom teacher as they left the forest park and hailed a taxi to the Prime Casino. To be honest, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were still rather fearful of places like the Prime Casino. The term mafia was enough to send chills down one's spine. Nine Valleys Gang, the entrance of the Prime Casino. The taxi driver parked his car far away and drove off immediately after Yun Jian paid the fare. He could not be blamed for this. For places like the Prime Casino that belonged to mafia groups, it was common for some gamblers to be chopped off and stomped on the spot when they lost and could not afford to pay. Standing at the entrance of the casino, Yun Jian had her hands in her pockets. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen stood diagonally behind her. She tilted her head and looked at the two trembling youths. "Don't go in if you're afraid." She could easily handle the entire casino on her own, but with Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen she could not guarantee that no accidents would happen. "No, Master, I want to go in," Zhang Xiaofeng said in a firm tone. Hearing Zhang Xiaofeng's words, Yun Jian smiled wickedly and turned to look at Ling Yichen. After being stared at for a while, Ling Yichen finally said resolutely, "I'll go in too." "All right." Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and turned to look at Zhang Xiaofeng. She smiled wickedly at him and said arrogantly, "You can keep a low profile when you do things, but today I'm going to teach you a lesson. Since you've stepped into my circle, you have to remember this. If someone bullies you, even if it's the emperor, you won't tolerate it." No matter what the Nine Valleys Gang's motive was or why they kidnapped Chen Sini, Yun Jian would never keep a low profile when dealing with such an enemy. Because if you cower today, there won't be a place for you in this world anymore. Yun Jian continued to narrate. Just like in her previous life, if she was not strong, if she kept a low profile and did not show her strength, even if others bullied her, she would have died a long time ago. Survival of the fittest, elimination of the weak. And she, Yun Jian, was never a weakling. Zhang Xiaofeng listened to Yun Jian's words in a daze. He did not fully understand. It was only when Yun Jian walked towards the casino that the two of them followed closely behind. There were two people who looked like bodyguards standing at the entrance of the casino. When they saw Yun Jian, a little girl, walking towards them, they quickly waved their hands and gestured for her to go away. "Go, go, go. Little brat, where are you going? This is not a place you should be." One of them pointed to the side and shouted at Yun Jian and the rest impatiently. Yun Jian walked up and kicked him. The person was sent flying into the casino. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen did not expect Yun Jian to be so fierce. The two of them were stunned as they recalled the meaning behind Yun Jian's words to Zhang Xiaofeng. The girl had already stepped into the entrance of the casino. She stood at the entrance and stepped on the chest of the bodyguard who had been kicked away. She said loudly, "Get the boss of your Nine Valleys Gang to come out and see me." Chapter 142. The Nine Valleys Gang was Longmen City's second mafia group after all, and its influence in Longmen City was immense. Yun Jian's roar was a humiliation to the Nine Valleys Gang members. Soon, a group of brawny men with metal rods dashed out from the inner room and surrounded the trio led by Yun Jian. A man with dyed yellow hair walked out from the group with a cigarette dangling from his mouth. He studied Yun Jian and spat the cigarette on the floor. The man with dyed yellow hair turned his menacing face to look at Yun Jian from the corner of his eye and spoke arrogantly, "Yo, little girl, you want to see our boss? Isn't your tone a little too presumptuous? Aren't you afraid that we'll do something to you?" The blond man's voice was sinister when he spoke. His eyes were still on Yun Jian when he spoke the last sentence, looking like a ruffian who wanted more. "Brother Huang, why are you talking to her? How dare this brat call our boss by his name and ask him to come out?" Let's teach her a lesson first. Let these three brats know that our boss's name isn't to be insulted by anyone. A lackey standing beside the blond man shouted at him and waved the metal rod in his hand as if boasting about his prowess. Yun Jian scoffed in response. At the same time, Yun Jian took a step forward. Her cold, hawk-like eyes stared at the group before her as she smirked. Do you think you're qualified to teach me a lesson? After that, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen, who were standing not far behind Yun Jian, saw Yun Jian stretch out her hands. A few stones the size of diamonds appeared between her fair and clean fingers. She waved her hands and hurled the stones out. These stones were like several sharp swords, and with frightening speed and accuracy, they smashed towards the group of strong men holding iron rods. Plop, plop, an orderly sound rang out. The 6 to 7 brawny men who were holding metal rods were hit in the knees by pebbles, and all of them knelt down toward Yun Jian in the order they were spread out around them. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were completely dumbfounded. Both of them thought that Yun Jian's ability had been unleashed to its fullest when she was shooting. What was going on here though? Throwing stones at the same time and hitting a few brawny men in one move. It was impossible to execute such a move without extremely precise technique. They had only seen such a scene in a movie where an assassin killed someone. Yun Jian knew how to kill people? Both of them were dumbfounded. Let's go. Yun Jian turned her head to instruct Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen. Then she stepped over the group of brawny men who were kneeling on the ground and had no idea what had just happened. She had picked up these stones from the lawn in the park. She did not expect them to come in handy. Although they were not as handy as hidden weapons, they were not too shabby either. No matter how suspicious Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were, they would never think that Yun Jian was an assassin or a secret agent. They did not dare to continue standing in the same spot. So, while the yellow-haired man and the others were stunned, they followed Yun Jian's footsteps. They stepped over the screen at the entrance and walked straight to the center of the casino. In the center of the casino, wave after wave of gamblers sat together, making a racket. Big. Big, I'll bet on big. Small. Small. Small, this round will definitely be small. The gamblers were having a good time. Their tireless voices echoed throughout the casino. At this moment, Yun Jian led Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen around the lively casino and walked straight to the back door. Chapter 143. Yun Jian, Ling Yichen and Ling Yichen passed through the center of the smoky casino and entered through the back door. Everyone in the casino was busy gambling to further enhance the atmosphere of the place. No one had the time to care about Yun Jian, Ling Yichen and Ling Yichen's actions. Passing through the back door, the ruckus in the front hall abruptly subsided. Follow me closely from now on. No matter what happens, don't leave my sight. Yun Jian turned to instruct Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen who were behind her. Okay. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen nodded. Both of them did not know what Yun Jian meant, but after witnessing Yun Jian's skills and tactics, they chose to believe her unconditionally. They then passed through a dark corridor without lights. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen held their breaths, not daring to even breathe loudly. They had never thought that they would be able to barge into the mafia's territory one day. To them, the mafia was the most terrifying place in existence. The girl who led them forward, however, did not show the slightest hint of fear. "We're here." Yun Jian smirked with a squint. As she spoke, she glanced sideways at a room with warm lighting in front of them. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen's breaths paused, but they did not say a word, as if they had made a pact. Yun Jian, on the other hand, walked forward casually. The room with the orange light from the door was the office of Longmen City's second mafia boss, Yuan Shuxiao. The corridor was dark and there were no windows. Therefore, one could clearly see the warm light coming from the room. From this, Yun Jian was certain that the person was inside. In contrast to Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen's cautiousness, Yun Jian went straight ahead, unafraid of making a commotion. She went to the door and kicked it open. If she was uncertain before, she was now certain that she was the reason Qin Sini was taken away. Their target was her. Perhaps it was the experience of her younger brother being taken away and killed in her past life that made Yun Jian loathe those who took away the people she cared about. She hated being threatened. She hated people who used the people she cared about to threaten her. Clang. Yun Jian's kick was so forceful that it broke the door lock. It was a testament to her strength. At the same time, not only Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen shuddered, the people inside the room felt their eyelids twitching. There were 3 people standing in the room. The middle-aged man in a suit standing in the middle of the trio was the Nine Valleys Gang's boss, Yuan Shuxiao. When Yuan Shuxiao heard the door's broken door lock, he shuddered and goosebumps all over his body. The other 2 men standing next to Yuan Shuxiao did not look any better. Just when the 3 people in the room were staring at the young girl who had broken through the door, they saw the young girl raise her foot and walk into the room. She used her sharp and deep eyes to look at Yuan Shuxiao. She called out Yuan Shuxiao's full name directly, her tone scornful and arrogant. "Yuan Shuxiao, are you declaring war against the kosher mercenaries by taking my people away?" The girl's tone was frivolous, but her words made Yuan Shuxiao and the other 3 men gasp. Chapter 144. Kosher Mercenaries was a team formed by the world's top mercenaries. It was the vanguard among the assassin organizations. Other than an Hun group, Kosher Mercenaries could be said to be invincible in the world. Whenever Yuan Suxiao mentioned such an organization to his brothers in the past, he would be shocked by it. Yun Jian slammed the door and walked in, humiliating Yuan Suxiao and his men. Just as they were about to lash out at the young and frivolous girl, they did not expect her to boast shamelessly that she was a member of kosher mercenaries. Yuan Suxiao understood that if an ordinary person spouted nonsense in the name of kosher mercenaries, the kosher mercenaries would seek revenge from them. Since Yun Jian dared to say it, she must be a member of kosher mercenaries, unless she had a death wish. Kosher mercenaries had spies all over the world and could even find out about trivial matters. If Yun Jian was just a member of kosher mercenaries like Su Zetian, Yuan Suxiao would not have to be so frightened and shocked. Kosher mercenaries had members all over the world. There were plenty of people like Su Zetian who occupied a position in Longmen City but had no status in kosher mercenaries. In spite of it, Yuan Suxiao grasped Yun Jian's words tightly. She had actually said something like, "Do you want to start a war with us kosher mercenaries?" It could be said that her position in kosher mercenaries was extraordinary. She could even summon kosher mercenaries to start a war with him. Otherwise, a mere member of kosher mercenaries would not dare to use such an arrogant tone and claim to be a member of kosher mercenaries. Therefore Yuan Suxiao, the woman standing next to him, and his confidant standing next to him were all stunned. They were dumbfounded. The girl before them who looked underage was actually a high-ranking member of kosher mercenaries? The news was too shocking. Of course, Yuan Suxiao and his men did not know how they would react if they knew that Yun Jian was the boss of kosher mercenaries. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen, who followed Yun Jian in, were dumbfounded as well. Kosher mercenaries? How could they not know? It was an internationally renowned mercenary organization. In spite of it, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen knew that Yun Jian was just an ordinary third-year middle school girl. Thinking about it, both of them frowned and decided to wait and see what would happen. Did I take your men away? My young friend, you can't simply say that. I'm a man of the underworld, but I've never done anything outrageous. Yuan Suxiao's attitude toward Yun Jian was very amiable. At least from Yuan Suxiao's point of view, it did not matter if Yun Jian was really a high-ranking member of kosher mercenaries. But he would rather assume that she was a high-ranking member than take the risk of angering kosher mercenaries. Yun Jian scoffed and went straight to Yuan Suxiao's desk from the door. Lifting her hand, she tapped lightly on the surface of the desk with her finger. You didn't? Yun Jian scoffed and crossed her legs to sit on the desk. Crossing her left leg over her right leg, she crossed her legs lazily and looked at Yuan Suxiao. The license plate is Dragon A? 50855. Yuan Suxiao, do you dare say that your Nine Valleys gang did not take my men away? Yuan Suxiao was stunned. The license plate was indeed his Nine Valleys gang's car. But he did not send anyone to take her away. At this moment, the woman standing beside Yuan Suxiao trembled when she heard Yun Jian's words. Yun Jian saw the woman's action. Yun Jian suddenly smirked and jumped down from the desk. She walked to the woman in a few steps. Chapter 145. Looking at the dagger that appeared out of nowhere in Yun Jian's hand, the group was stunned. Yuan Suxiao in particular shuddered and wanted to push Yun Jian away, but he stopped himself and told Yun Jian in a trembling voice, young friend, this must be a misunderstanding. Xiaoyu is my sister. She just came back from studying in Country Y. How could she have a grudge against you or your people? It's even more impossible for her to take your people away. Can you put the dagger down first? The woman was none other than Yuan Suxiao's biological sister, Yuan Xiaoyu. As the boss of Longmen City's second mafia group, Yuan Suxiao's position in Longmen City was second only to Su Zetian. He was also a big shot, but he had never shown weakness to anyone like today. Yun Jian was the first. In spite of it, Yuan Suxiao had a feeling that if he angered Yun Jian, the dagger in her hand would really slit his sister's neck brutally. Yuan Suxiao was known for his decisiveness in killing, but his only weakness was his sister, Yuan Xiaoyu. He lost his father when he was young and his mother remarried, leaving him and his sister behind. They were homeless back then and his sister was his only family. Therefore, when Yuan Suxiao saw Yun Jian's dagger pressed against Yuan Xiaoyu's neck, he shuddered and his heart almost leaped out of his chest. Yuan Xiaoyu herself did not expect Yun Jian to threaten her with a dagger. She was so frightened that her legs turned to jelly and she was paralyzed but not paralyzed. Are you going to tell me or not? Yun Jian did not listen to Yuan Suxiao but asked Yuan Xiaoyu further while the dagger in her hand pressed closer to Yuan Xiaoyu's skin. Yuan Xiaoyu could even feel the coldness of her pores and the dagger's handle getting closer. She shuddered and could not help screaming, No, no, no. Don't kill me. Sup. Don't kill me. It's not me, it's not me. I didn't do it on purpose. Sup. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen thought that Yun Jian had made a mistake too, but their eyes were now on Yun Jian and the seemingly harmless woman Yuan Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu, what did you say? Yuan Shuxiao did not expect that his sister would actually admit it. In his impression, his sister had always been well-behaved and obedient. He did not expect that she would really kidnap Yun Jian's people. He looked at her in disbelief. Yuan Xiaoyu pursed her lips nervously. Her body trembled and she suddenly cried out loudly. However, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and curled her lips. She put down the dagger, crossed her arms and looked at Yun Jian, who was squatting on the ground. She said coldly, "The person you are looking for should be me, Yun Jian, right?" Hearing the two words Yun Jian, Yuan Xiaoyu, who was squatting on the ground, raised her head. Her face was slightly pale as she nodded shakily. Under Yuan Shuxiao's mediation, Yuan Xiaoyu finally told the truth unwillingly. Indeed, Yuan Xiaoyu did not have a grudge against Yun Jian. The one who had a grudge against Yun Jian was Shiniji, who had lost to Yun Jian in the arena not long ago and had his hands crippled by Yun Jian. Shiniji was a contestant in Country-Wise National Challenge Tournament. His future was ruined after his hands were crippled and he was filled with anger. Coincidentally, Shiniji's sister and Yuan Xiaoyu were roommates in Country-Wise Gaia University and they were good friends. In short, Yuan Xiaoyu used her brother Yuan Shuxiao's underworld power to help Shiniji's sister find Yun Jian and help her take revenge on Yun Jian. Yun Jian was not easy to deal with. Yuan Xiaoyu knew this from the beginning, so she used Lu Rongrong, who was not on good terms with Yun Jian's classmate, to tell Lu Rongrong that she could help her teach Yun Jian a lesson as long as she could trick Yun Jian into coming out. However, later in the forest park, Lu Rongrong did not have the chance to trick Yun Jian out alone. Coincidentally, she bumped into Qin Sini, who was best friends with Yun Jian, going to the toilet. Therefore, Lu Rongrong asked Yuan Xiaoyu's people to take Qin Sini away first. She also claimed that as long as she used Qin Sini to threaten Yun Jian, she would not be afraid of Yun Jian being arrogant again. Lu Rongrong. Yun Jian smiled contemptuously. Her lips curled into a murderous smile. Although she was smiling, the temperature in the room dropped by a few degrees. Chapter 146. Everyone shuddered from the bottom of their hearts when they heard Yun Jian's menacing words floating toward them. Especially Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen. They never thought that Lu Rongrong was one of the masterminds behind Qin Sini's kidnapping. Where is she? When everyone came back to their senses, Yun Jian's voice had returned to normal. She asked Yuan Xiaoyu calmly, but there was a chilling coldness in her voice. She was, of course, referring to Qin Sini. Yuan Xiaoyu did not dare to hide anything. She knew that this matter was serious. Because Yun Jian was the one who made her brother, whom she had always admired, feel uneasy. Yuan Xiaoyu immediately gave him an address. She raised her head and looked at Yuan Shuxiao while trembling. She pursed her lips and said, "Originally they wanted to kidnap the little girl first and then send someone to deliver a letter to you. They wanted you to go to the place they told you to go alone and then capture you directly." Before Yuan Xiaoyu could finish, Yun Jian turned and left. She did not want to hear this nonsense. When she left, she gestured to Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen. They immediately followed her. "You stay here and don't go anywhere. I'll deal with you when I come back." Yuan Shuxiao pointed at Yuan Xiaoyu's head and walked out. He was a smart man. He knew that his sister had made such a serious mistake. If he did not make up for it, Yun Jian, who was one of the higher-ups of the kosher mercenaries, would not let her go. Therefore he wanted to do something while he could still make up for it. After all, anyone who offended the kosher mercenaries was one step closer to death. The four of them walked out of the back door and came to the center of the casino. Just now the gamblers in the casino were shouting even louder. It could be said that there was another wave after another. The four of them, led by Yun Jian, had just walked to the center of the casino. They wanted to leave quietly, but unexpectedly, they heard a heart-wrenching voice begging for mercy. "Please, please don't cut my hand, don't cut it. I'll go home to get the money." It was a hoarse male voice and there was a sense of despair and regret in it. There were plenty of people who lost money in the casino and could not pay it back, resulting in their limbs being chopped off. This was especially true in the Prime Casino, known as the top casino in Longmen City. It was as simple as eating a meal. Yun Jian walked past the place directly, but it was Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen who looked horrified. "No, don't cut it off, I beg you, please." "Yun Jian? Yun Jian. Daughter? My daughter, she's my daughter." It was then that the pleading voice went straight to Yun Jian as if it had suddenly seen some hope. When Yun Jian first heard the voice, she found it familiar but she did not pay it much attention. When the voice called her in front of everyone, however, Yun Jian snapped back to reality. She looked up and saw a sloppy middle-aged man in his 30s or 40s with a beard on his chin that had not been shaved for a long time running toward her. Yun Jian was stunned, but she managed to get a clear look at the man's face. Although he was more unkempt compared to the father in the original owner's memory, it was not hard to tell that this was the person she had never seen since her rebirth and had left her family with so much trouble. The father of her current body, Yun Gang. When Yun Gang saw Yun Jian, he could not care less about why his daughter was here. He ran behind Yun Jian and stuck his head out to look at the person who had just won against him but wanted to chop off his hand because he could not pay back the money he had lost. He shuddered slightly. Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and Yuan Shuxiao were surprised that the middle-aged man would simply recognize his father. However, when they saw that Yun Jian did not push the man away but remained silent and aloof, they were shocked. This sloppy and cowardly man who looked like a slug was really Yun Jian's father? How was this possible? Yun Jian's domineering aura even made Yuan Shuxiao wonder who could have given birth to such an amazing daughter. Chapter 147. Jian. Xiao Jian, save me. Save daddy, save daddy. Yun Gang hid behind Yun Jian and tugged at the corner of Yun Jian's shirt as he watched the man who was approaching him. This man was the one who had just won the bet and wanted to chop off Yun Gang's hands because he could not pay up. This man was one of Yuan Su Zhao's subordinates. His name was Yi Feng and he was the manager of the casino. Yun Gang had come here with the intention of gambling today. If he won, he would have the money to pay off his debt. Who knew that he would lose so badly and almost lose both his hands? At that moment, Yun Gang had no idea what had happened to his family. Ever since he ran away with a debt, he had not returned to Xinjiang town. When Yi Feng saw Yun Gang running behind Yun Jian, he was making his way over with the intention of putting an end to this matter. In spite of it, Yi Feng saw his boss, Yuan Shuxiao, standing behind Yun Jian and waving at him, signaling him to let it go. Hence he did not come over again. Let go. Yun Jian's frivolous voice rang again, causing everyone's hearts to skip a beat. Yun Jian was speaking to Yun Gang. It was because Yun Gang was tugging at the hem of Yun Jian's shirt out of fear. Xiao Jian, daddy's wrong, daddy's wrong, daddy's wrong, please save daddy. Yun Gang thought that Yun Jian was angry and did not realize that Yi Feng had backed off. Instead, he tugged at Yun Jian's shirt even more fearfully as he begged for help in a trembling voice. I'll say it again, let go or I'll cripple your hands for you. Yun Jian did not like Yun Gang at all. She did not expect to run into Yun Gang in a place like this. Previously, Yun Gang had left so many troublesome chores for the family. She could ignore it, but she didn't expect that this person named father would be so stubborn as to continue gambling in the casino. If she had not persuaded Qin Yiru to leave Yun Gang, what would have happened? It was estimated that Qin Yiru would be cheated by Yun Gang until not even a bone would be left. Yun Gang had never thought that his weak and timid daughter would speak to him in such a tone. He was frightened on the spot, and his hand unconsciously loosened. Everyone sucked in a deep breath when they saw this. Let's go. Yun Jian said a few words to the people behind her, but her eyes glanced sideways at Yun Gang and threatened. If you dare to follow me, not only will I cripple your hands, I will also chop off your feet. Also, you're not allowed to disturb my mother and brother in the future. Go back to your hometown. I've already paid off your debt. This is the last time. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. Yun Jian's words were a disguised reminder to Yuan Shuxiao's men to let Yun Gang go. Of course, she also expressed her attitude. This was the last time she would clean up the mess for the original owner's father. In the future, this man's life and death would have nothing to do with her. Yun Gang was dumbfounded. He rolled his eyes and stared blankly at Yun Jian being escorted out by Yuan Shuxiao and the others. He had an illusion that his daughter was not a fish in a pond. After leaving the casino, Yuan Shuxiao took out his jeep for Yun Jian. They got in the jeep. Yun Jian did not want to be in the limelight and let Yuan Shuxiao drive her to the place that Yuan Xiaoyu told her to. It was a remote area in the wilderness. There was only a row of temporary factory buildings built here. In the warehouse behind the factory building, Shiniji, whose hands were crippled, stood there fiercely with a seductive woman beside him. Have you caught Yun Jian yet? Shiniji exhaled fiercely. Not yet, but soon. The seductive woman sighed. Chapter 148. Okay, brother. The seductive woman standing beside Shiniji nodded and smiled viciously. This seductive foreign woman was Shiniji's sister, Shiniji. Shiniji looked down and a sharp glint flashed across her eyes. She said to Shiniji in a low voice, "The assassin we hired this time is one of the top 10 assassins on the assassin ranking, Wolf Blade, who is also known as the Grim Killer. Unless Yun Jian is on the assassin or secret agent ranking, she can't possibly leave this place alive. Dream on." Shiniji laughed out loud when he heard that. It was as if he could see Yun Jian descending into hell and taking his revenge. A jeep drove in through the rows of factories. Finally, the jeep stopped at the entrance of the factories. Her disciple should have Yun
Jian
such spirit.
and the rest got out of
Let's
the car
go
one
then.
by one.
Yun
This
Jian
is the place
Xiaoyu
Xiaoyu
mentioned.
Yuan Shuxiao and the rest were
was the
stunned.
last to get out of
There
the
are
car.
so many factories
He closed
here.
the car
Do you
door
know
and
where
took
the
a few
person
steps
is?
forward.
Aren't you
He
afraid
looked
of
around and
alerting
said,
the enemy? There are so many
Yuan
factories
Shuxiao
here.
was indeed the
How are we
boss
going
of
to
Longmen
find her?
City's second mafia
Zhang
group.
Xiaofeng seemed
He
to
had
be
the
in a
ability
hurry.
to judge and
Ever
asked
since
Yun
Chen
Jian.
Sini was taken
Yes.
away, every
Yun
minute
Jian
and
narrowed
every
her
second
eyes
had
and
been
suddenly
very
pointed
difficult
at the
for him.
ground.
Although
The factory
Zhang
floor in
Xiaofeng
this era
liked to
was
bicker
not
with
made of
Chen
cement
Sini
but
on a
made
daily
of sand
basis.
and rocks.
Chen Sini
On
was
the
his
sand
only
and
sister
rocks,
among the
there
younger
was a
generation.
particularly obvious
Although they
tire
were
print.
cousins, they had
They
grown
were
up
still
together and
pondering
were
Yun
very
Jian's
close to
meaning
each
with a
other.
frown when Yun
As her
Jian
brother,
explained,
he naturally
just
did not
follow
want
the tire
anything to
print
happen
left
to
by
his
the
sister.
car.
Yuan
All right,
Shuxiao was
Xiaofeng, I've
already
already
informed the police.
She had observed it so
I believe
carefully.
they will come here soon
Yuan
to rescue
Shuxiao
her.
asked again in
I didn't
confusion,
inform Uncle
how
and
did you
Auntie
determine
because
that
I'm
this
afraid
tire
they will
print
be
was
worried if
driven
they
by the
know
car
that something
that took your
happened
friend
to
away?
Sini. What if it
Ling
was another
Yichen
car?
waved his phone and sent a
Zhang
text
Xiaofeng
message.
and Ling Yichen
Thank
were
you.
equally puzzled by
Zhang
this question.
Xiaofeng saw that
Yun
Ling
Jian
Yichen was
narrowed her
considerate
eyes
and
and turned
thanked
to
him.
look at them,
Let's
pointing a
go.
finger as she
Yun
explained.
Jian took two
First,
steps
this
forward
tire
and
print
suddenly
was crushed
stopped.
not too long ago.
She turned her head to look
Second,
at
the
Zhang
tire print of
Xiaofeng
your
and Ling
Jeep,
Yichen.
Dragon A. Are you two going to continue?
50855 looks
Shiniji
like
has
this.
a grudge against me.
She could
and he's a
actually tell
foreigner
that the
from
tire
country
print
Y.
was left by a
You've
car
met
not
Zhang
too long ago
Xiaofeng before, and
Her
he's
knowledge
someone who
and
can
insight
get a
were
pistol.
actually so precise.
If you guys continue to follow me and something happens,
Chapter
what will you do?
149.
Zhang
After that,
Xiaofeng was her
Zhang
personal
Xiaofeng and the other
disciple,
two did
her
not
first
question
disciple
her anymore.
If he
To
followed
be
her,
honest,
he would
whether it was
definitely
Yun
experience
Jian's
such
previous
dangerous
judgment or
things.
her skills and
However,
methods,
Zhang
they did not
Xiaofeng still
seem like
did not
something
have
a
the
teenage
ability to
girl should
protect
have.
himself because he
The
had
only
just
thing
received
they were
training.
certain of was that her
Yun Jian
assertions
never
were
liked
never
people
wrong.
making unnecessary
Based on this alone,
sacrifices.
the three of them
Moreover,
trusted
this was
her
her own
unconditionally.
No,
Trust
master,
me and follow
I will
me.
definitely go
Yun
because
Jian said
Sini
with
is
a
my
slight
younger
quirk of
sister.
her brow while the
She
three
is
of
in
them
danger
thought
now,
about it.
and as her brother,
All three of them
how can I
nodded
run
in
away
unison.
at such a dangerous
With Yun
time?
Jian leading the way,
Zhang
they followed the
Xiaofeng
deepest
firmly
tire
expressed
tracks
his
on
inner
the
sand
sand
until they came to
Me
the door
too,
of a
let's go
factory in the
together.
corner.
Ling
In the
Yichen did
warehouse
not
behind
look
the
like a
factory,
playboy at the moment.
Shiniji,
Instead, he
and the
looked more like a
cold-faced
proper
assassin
man.
they hired, Wolf
Yun
Blade,
Jian
were
smiled
already
with her
standing
eyes
there.
crinkled.
Not far away, Chen Sini, who had her mouth covered with black tape, was tied to a bench, trying to make a sound. There was a group of people standing beside Shiniji and Shiniji who were probably their subordinates. Why isn't that brat here yet? Didn't you say you've sent someone to inform her? Shiniji shot his younger sister, Shiniji, a vicious glare from the corner of his eyes. He had no idea that Yun Jian had already come before she received the notice. Brother, is she going to leave her alone? After all, is it worth it to die for a friend? Shiniji pointed at Chen Sini, who was tied up with a frown. Chen Sini widened her eyes before she shook her head abruptly. She had been listening to the duo's conversation and had seen Shiniji in the ring the last time. She already knew that they had captured her to lure Yun Jian. She knew that Jian Jian would come, but she was afraid that something would happen to the friend she had spent so much effort to make. Boss, since that brat isn't here, why don't you let us have some fun first? A few foreigners who stood beside Shiniji rubbed their hands together as they looked at Chen Sini's pretty face. A few of them even pulled up their pants. It was needless to say how wretched they were. Go, go, go.
As long as you don't make any noise it's fine. Shiniji wanted to take revenge on Yunjian, so he hated Yunjian. Naturally, he wasn't satisfied with Yunjian's friend, Qin Sini. When the men heard Shiniji's words, they rubbed their hands and walked toward Qin Sini with lewd smiles. Qin Sini's beautiful eyes suddenly widened, because these foreigners were all speaking Chinese, and she could understand them all the way. At this moment she shook her head vigorously. This was the first time she had felt such despair and fear. She even wanted to end her life at this moment. However, before these men could get close to Qin Sini, the door was kicked open with a bang. The sturdy door was kicked open, and Yunjian's slender and beautiful body was the first to step in. Her long and narrow eyes scanned the entire place sharply, and she said without restraint, "You dare to touch my people, Shiniji, you're dead meat." She had let Shiniji go in the arena last time out of respect for Su Zetian. However, Shiniji was still being stubborn today, so he couldn't blame her for being merciless. Kikik. Shiniji was slightly taken aback when he saw Yunjian slam the door open, and a strange smile appeared on his face. He wasn't afraid of Yunjian at all. "Mr. Wolf Blade, please kill her." Shiniji turned his head to look at Wolf Blade and spoke in an extremely respectful tone. Only then did everyone turn their gazes toward this man, who was as thin as a skeleton. Yunjian narrowed her eyes and looked directly at this man. Wolf Blade, ranked 10th on the assassin rankings, was a cold-faced assassin. This person had a wild, wolf-like nature. Although he was extremely thin and weak, he was an expert in assassination. In a one-on-one battle, even the assassin ranked higher than him might not be able to defeat him. "Shiniji, the person you want me to kill is only this little girl? You're underestimating me too much. I, Wolf Blade, am one of the top 10 elites in the world of assassins, and you want me to fight a little girl?" Wolf Blade looked at Yunjian with disdain as he spoke to Shiniji. "Assassin." Shiniji had actually hired an assassin to deal with Yunjian? Hearing Wolf Blade's words, Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and Yuan Xuxiao's faces turned pale. Chapter 150. The reason why Zhang Xiaofeng and the others turned pale wasn't just because Wolf Blade was an assassin. If Wolf Blade was just a normal assassin without formal training, then they wouldn't be so afraid. After all, Yunjian's strength wasn't just for show. She was able to defeat Shiniji in one move and even take away his gun and cripple his hands. It was obvious that Yunjian wasn't a normal person. However, Wolf Blade claimed to be in the top 10 of the assassin ranking. To be able to squeeze into the top 10 of the assassin ranking or secret agent ranking, which one of them wasn't an elite that had survived a rain of bullets. It could be said that no matter who it was, as long as they showed up, even if they just stomped their feet, it was enough to cause a storm. Shiniji had actually hired Wolf Blade, who was ranked 10th on the assassin ranking. Moreover, his goal was only to take revenge on Yunjian. Zhang Xiaofeng and the others looked worriedly at Yunjian. They immediately frowned with worry and fear. However, when Yunjian heard Wolf Blade's claim, her face didn't show any signs of shock. On the contrary, she was very calm. Then, she raised her eyebrows and pointed a slender finger at Wolf Blade. She said frivolously, "You're not worthy of fighting with me. Killing you will only dirty my hands." Yunjian's words sounded like she didn't care about her life. A little girl like her actually dared to provoke the internationally famous cold-faced assassin, making him look like a devil from hell. TSK, you little girl, you're really interesting, but shiver. You're so young, but you've got guts.
However,
as an assassin,
it's a pity
he could
that
laugh
you're
at you
someone
one
that my
second
employer
and stab
wants
you
to
in the
kill.
stomach the next.
Therefore, you must
They would
die
even do
today.
anything to complete their
Wolfblade
mission,
sized
even
up
their
Yun
lives.
Jian again.
Therefore,
He
their
clicked his
existence
tongue
made
and spoke
countless
with a sinister
businessmen,
tone.
politicians,
The way
and
he looked at
international
Yun Jian was
tycoons
like he was
tremble in
looking at
fear.
a dead person.
Those 5-centimeter
Wolfblade
long
had looked down on
fingernails
Yun
seemed
Jian
like they would
before,
stab
then
Yun
now he
Jian's
had
heart
to
in the next
reevaluate
second.
this girl.
Everyone's
Wolfblade
expression
could
changed
smell the
greatly.
scent of an assassin
Yun
from
Jian,
Yun
the main
Jian's aura,
character, didn't
but
move.
he didn't pay it any
She
mind.
didn't move.
After
Instead,
all,
she
it
began
wasn't
to
easy
speak.
to find an
Wolf's
assassin
Blade
or
joined
secret
an
agent
who
who
was
was
better
better
than him in the world.
At 8, he
Moreover,
stole a knife
this
and
girl in
killed
front of
someone.
him was only
At
15
14,
or
he
16
started
years
his
old.
first mission. You guys
At
go
18,
away.
he assassinated
Yun Jian
the chief
waved
of
her
C
hand
country
and
and
became
Xiaofeng
famous.
and the others behind her.
With this kind
She
of
was
experience,
currently
what
emitting an
qualifications
imposing
do you
aura
have to
that forced
fight
them
me?
to submit.
With every word
At this
Yun Jian
moment,
said,
Zhang
Wolf's Blade
Xiaofeng and the
froze.
others didn't
This
say
girl
anything
knew his
and
identity
immediately
so well.
retreated.
At the
In
same
their
time,
hearts, they
everyone
already placed
present
Yun
looked at
Jian's
Yun
orders
Jian in
first.
shock. TSK Tisk.
Interesting.
Chapter
Interesting.
151.
Wolfblade
was
smirked
stunned.
abruptly and said
How did
something
Yun Jian
chilling
find
in an
out that he was
extremely
an
ordinary
assassin
tone
from the
as he
Han
walked toward
organization?
Yun Jian?
It should be known that any
Before
assassin
anyone
or
could
special
react,
agent on the
Wolfblade
assassin or
extended
special
his
agent
arm and
ranking would have
sprinted
all their
toward Yun
secrets
Jian.
sealed off.
His
As long as they
fingernails
were in
were
the top
pointed
10.
downward as he attacked
Ordinary
Yun
people
Jian
could
viciously.
forget about knowing their qualifications. Even if they wanted to know their gender, it was a very difficult thing to do. That was why Wolfblade was so shocked. Even if Wolfblade was one of the top 10 assassins on the leaderboard, it was impossible for him to know the qualifications of the other assassins on the leaderboard. Before this, Wolfblade admitted that he had never met Yun Jian, let alone that Yun Jian had the time to check his qualifications. Wolfblade's pupils suddenly shrank. His eyes widened as he stared at the beautiful girl with her hair tied up in a high ponytail. He then shook his head. He knew that there were two people in the world who could easily find out the top 10 assassins and secret agents' secrets. There was no one else. One of them was the leader of the Inhun organization. The leader of the Inhun organization was the leader of the organization he belonged to. Naturally, he would not spread this information. As for the other person, she was the top secret agent on the secret agent leaderboard, known as the strongest secret agent in history. She was the king of secret agents with invincible hacking skills, Slaying God. Slaying God was an existence that struck fear into the hearts of those in the underworld. She was a legend. However, there was no way Wolfblade would believe that the young girl before him was Slaying God. Although he did not know Slaying God's age and gender, he did not think that the master of the Tang Tang secret agent world would appear in such a destitute place. Was that not a joke? With that in mind, Wolfblade looked at Yun Jian confidently and cackled, no longer holding back. I don't care where you got my qualifications from. Since you know my secrets, you'll have to die today. As he spoke, Wolfblade put his fingernails together and leaped toward Yun Jian. Zhang Xiaofeng and the rest held their breaths. They wanted to scream out loud. Could Yun Jian really withstand an attack from an international assassin? The answer was, of course, yes. Yun Jian smirked. She turned sideways to face Wolfblade and narrowed her eyes. Her youthful eyes sparkled. She curled her lips and said in disdain, "Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish." Yun Jian's voice was flat, and no one could hear any changes in it. However, just as she said the last word, Yun Jian's figure flashed, and what appeared next was a dazzling flash of lightning. Her figure was as fast as lightning, and her speed was even faster than Wolfblade's. You. Wolfblade's eyes widened, but his many years of experience allowed him to quickly calm down. He closed his fingers and clenched his hand into a fist. He changed his strategy and threw a punch at Yun Jian. Yun Jian narrowed her lips. She also stretched out her hand and clenched her fist, slamming it against Wolfblade's fist. Ha! Wolfblade roared. Pooh! At the same time, the sound of a blade piercing into flesh could be heard. What the audience saw was Yun Jian extending her arm and punching Wolfblade at the same time. Both of their fists were tied. They saw Yun Jian squinting her eyes and smirking. When the two fists collided, her soft leg bent in an arc and hit Wolfblade's chest from his back. What was different from normal shoes was that Yun Jian's seemingly ordinary white shoes had a small knife stuck in the tip. At this moment, Yun Jian hooked her leg and the knife on the tip of her shoe ruthlessly pierced Wolfblade's heart. In a fight between assassins, especially in a fight between experts, a single move could decide the outcome. Zhang Xiaofeng and the others clearly saw that Yun Jian had used one hand to block Wolfblade's fist, while her other hand had inserted a small knife into the tip of her own white shoes. Then, when her fist collided with Wolfblade, the tip of her shoe pierced Wolfblade's heart at the same time. This series of impossible movements appeared out of thin air in front of everyone's eyes. The outcome would be decided in one round. You. Wolfblade suddenly widened his eyes. He looked at the girl's smiling face up close and finally spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Slaying. Wolf Blade tried his best to shout the word God, but he realized that his body was already falling backward. He stared at Yun Jian in horror as his body fell to the ground and died with his eyes wide open. There was only one person in the world who could do what Yun Jian did with such ease. That person was slaying God. Chapter 152. Killing one of the top 10 international assassins, Wolf Blade, with one move. If Yun Jian defeating Shiniji with one move was shocking, then at this moment, everyone's mouths were wide open enough to fit a large duck egg. Yun Jian, where did she come from? Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were stunned on the spot. Every cell in their body was boiling in shock. Yuan Shuxiao's small eyes were also wide open. Shiniji, on the other hand, shook his head violently, staring at Yun Jian in disbelief and disbelief. He backed away slowly, muttering, "Impossible. Impossible." Even the top 10 assassins in the international assassin chart were no match for Yun Jian and were killed in one move. Who else could subdue her then? No. 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 Shiniji screamed. His deep male voice sounded sharp and crazy. "Just you wait, Yun Jian. Shiniji, just you wait. Next time I'll kill you. I'll kill you next time." Shiniji glared fiercely at Yun Jian. He opened his mouth and spat out threatening words. His voice was eerie and terrifying. "Do you think I'll let you live until the next time?" The creepy smirk on Yun Jian's lips abruptly vanished as she slowly made her way to Shiniji. Even her tone was instilling fear from the bottom of one's heart. She had let Shiniji go last time because of Su Zetian. She had never been a charitable person. She was not stupid. Shiniji wanted her life and even implicated the people she cared about. If this happened once, there would be a second time. How could she let go of a ticking time bomb that could explode at any time and continue living in this world? You want to kill me? No, no, no. I'm a member of Country-Y's national team. If you kill me, aren't you afraid that you'll become Country-Y's enemy? Yun Jian did not care about Shiniji. This was Shiniji's trump card. She strode towards Chen Sini and quickly untied the rope that bound Chen Sini. He did not show any fear. Both of you come and help her. Because he felt that Yun Jian would not dare to kill him. Yun Jian turned to look at Zhang Xiaofeng. Do you think I'll be afraid? Only then did the two of them come back to their senses. Her calm and they ran over to help Chen Sini. Shiniji's killing stance was terrifying. She was indeed the kind of person who was not afraid of anything. They were just a little shocked. Thus he turned around and ran. In order to escape, he did not even care about his sister. Big brother. Shiniji was shocked as she watched Shiniji run towards the back door of the warehouse. She couldn't react for a long time. So, Yun Jian sneered. She reached out and pulled out the knife stuck in the tip of her shoe. Then she threw it in the direction Shiniji had fled. From afar, Shiniji's heart was pierced by the dagger thrown by the girl, and he fell to the ground like a puddle of mud. Shiniji dead. Shitaji was shocked. She slowly slid to the ground and slowly became paralyzed. Everything she did was for her brother. She never thought that the brother who loved her the most would abandon her and run away. And now his brother was dead. At that moment, Shiniji completely lost her will. Her eyes were lifeless. Chapter 153. Yun Jian asked Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen to help Chen Sini because she had no more energy to support Chen Sini. Although Yun Jian had killed Wolf Blade in one hit, she had used up almost all the energy in her body. In a battle between masters, it was true that one hit would determine the winner. However, Yun Jian knew that if she did not kill Wolf Blade in one hit, her current body would not be able to support her to defeat Wolf Blade. After all, Wolf Blade was one of the top 10 assassins in the assassin ranking. He was not a second-rate assassin, especially when her current body's energy was not even 1/10 of what it was in her previous life. Yun Jian could only use her killer move to win. Wolf Blade lost because his killer move was not as fast, accurate and ruthless as Yun Jian's. Yun Jian had used up all her energy. Although she did not show it, only she knew how much energy she had. Beep, beep, beep. At this moment the sound of an alarm came from the door. Ling Yichen had called the police earlier, so it was normal for the police to come now. However, there were 2 more bodies on the ground. It would be abnormal for them to negotiate with the police. Don't worry, leave it to me. I'm familiar with the people in the police station. Yuan Shuxiao volunteered. He looked at Yun Jian as he spoke. It was only when Yun Jian looked down and hummed in agreement that Yuan Shuxiao breathed a sigh of relief. Yuan Shuxiao was afraid that Yun Jian would not forgive his sister, Yuan Xiaoyu, for what she had done before. However, when he heard Yun Jian's reply, he immediately felt relieved. Yuan Shuxiao was in the underworld. Naturally, he had met the people in the police station and had a good relationship with them. In the end, this incident was suppressed by Yuan Shuxiao. With Yuan Shuxiao's protection, Yun Jian's murder was not exposed at all. In fact, the police were surprisingly happy when they received the bodies this time. This was because Wolf Blade was an assassin on the international assassin ranking. At the same time, he was also one of the most wanted criminals in the world. The result was that they got rid of a wanted criminal that the international police wanted to arrest. The police station could be considered to have made a great contribution. When Wolf Blade was killed in Longmen City, the leader of the special forces, Gu Junjian, learned about it. He wanted to investigate immediately. Who killed the famous and cunning Wolf Blade? Gu Junjian was the leader of the country's special forces. He held a high position and there were not many people or things that could attract his attention. In spite of it, Wolf Blade's death in Longmen City had completely caught his attention. Gu Junjian conducted a thorough search in secret and even mobilized the police force to find the culprit at all costs. Of course, she did not know that she had caused a commotion among the police. They took advantage of the time to rush back to the forest park and catch the bus back to school. She did not see Lu Rongrong on the bus back. The class was split into 2 batches and was arranged into different buses. Once they got off the bus, Yun Jian blocked the other bus that was carrying her class and dragged Lu Rongrong off the bus, teaching her a harsh lesson in front of the whole school. For people like Lu Rongrong, ordinary lessons were useless. Yun Jian dashed into the bus and dragged her down. Once she did, she slapped her countless times, smirking as she did so. You know what you're doing. If you dare to do anything again, I'll make sure you die. Don't. Died. Without. Proper. Burial. Place. A slap for each word. It was only when Lu Rongrong screamed and fainted, her cheeks swollen, that Yun Jian turned to leave. Chapter 154. Lu Rongrong being beaten up by Yun Jian in public caused a commotion in the school, but as the subject of everyone's discussion, Yun Jian had long stayed in the classroom obediently. The next few days were peaceful for Yun Jian. The only difference was that Ling Yichen had followed Zhang Xiaofeng and would be fighting to be Yun Jian's disciple after class. Whenever he saw Ling Yichen, who had toned down his playboy self and was admiring Yun Jian in a different way, Zhang Xiaofeng would always point at Yun Jian fiercely to declare his sovereignty. This is my master. Ling Yichen, don't even think about making my master take you as his disciple. After that, Zhang Xiaofeng would go up to Yun Jian with a grin and talk about this and that. Chen Sini had recovered from the fright that day and was back to her usual carefree self. Yun Jian received news from Zhang Jifan as well. She did not want to disappoint her storefront, so she brought Yun Jian back with her. Space had already been renovated. Family was also it was believed that the renovation would be completed in less than 2 months. Was quite big, so Yun Jian's family's house was still a little far from Yun Gang's house. Once the renovation was completed, which she used to live in, the company could officially start running. It was a 3-story brick house with 3 suites. She was confident that she could set the new start auto sales company on the right track and become a household name within the next year to be the best in town. Lizard sent a message to Yun Jian's grandmother's telling her that she could not rush back to Longmen City for the time being, but she had already ordered someone to send Yun Jian's beloved car. She would often help her uncle's family who lived with Yun Jian's maternal grandparents. Yun Jian's mother gave birth when she heard the news.
One
Yun
of them
Jian was
died
not
young,
only
so
a secret
Qin Junlan
agent,
was
she
the
was
first in
also a
seniority.
collector who loved
Her
luxury
eldest
cars.
son was Qin Lai
She
Qian,
loved sports
and the
cars
next in
and
seniority
supercars
was
produced
Qin
all
Yiru.
over the country.
As for the
In
last
her
daughter,
previous
she was
life, she had
Yun Jian's
collected a
youngest
lot of
aunt,
limited
Qin
edition
Fangfang,
cars,
who had
but
married
among
out
all
of
the
the
cars,
province in
her
her
favorite
early
was
years.
this Ferrari LaFerrari.
She would only come home to visit during the
Blizzard
new year.
had always been
Qin Yiru
meticulous
knocked
and did
on the
not
door and
forget to send
opened
her
it.
beloved
She
car
was
over
stunned
this
when
time.
she saw a house
Yun
full of
Jian
people
was glad
sitting
about
in
it.
it. She
After
was
a few
stunned
days
because
of
the
peace,
person sitting
Qin
in the main
Yiru
seat
received
was
news
none
that
other
her
than her
mother,
mother,
Yun Jian's
who had
grandmother,
claimed that she was sick and wanted her to go home to visit her.
Yun Jian
Qin
narrowed
Yiru
her
had
eyes
indeed
and saw
left the
two
Yun
people
family,
standing next
but
to
that
her
did not
nominal
mean that she
grandmother
could
who was
abandon
sitting
her
in the main
biological
seat with
mother
an
and become
intimidating
an aura.
unfilial daughter
Qin
who did not
Junlan
even
and Zhang
return home.
Taijun.
Thus,
However,
on this
Zhang
day, Qin
Tiejuan's
Yiru
face
took
was
the
dark
remaining
and he looked
100
gloomy.
renminbi from her
At that
salary,
moment, Yun
which she had
Jian was
just
suddenly
received after
enlightened.
deducting her
She was
living
wondering
expenses,
why her
and
grandmother,
boarded the
who had
bus
never
to
liked her
return to
mother,
Xinjiang
would
town.
suddenly call
In
Qin
Yun
Yiru
Jian's
home to
memory,
visit her.
Qin Yiru's family
Mom,
was
are
not
you
good
okay?
people.
Qin Yiru
Furthermore,
was
Yun
stunned, but
Gang
she
might
still
have
pulled
already
Yun
returned to
Jian in.
Xinjiang town.
She asked because
Yun
she was
Jian
concerned
afraid
about
that
her
Yun
mother's
Gang would come
condition.
to Qin Yiru's doorstep and cause trouble.
Chapter 155.
She was afraid that no one
Mom,
would support
you're not
Qin
sick?
Yiru.
Qin
Thus,
Yiru
she insisted
acted
on going
surprised
back
when
with
she
him.
saw her mother,
Qin
Zhang
Yiru
Meihua,
naturally understood
sitting on
her
her
stool
daughter's
and
thoughts.
pointing at her. She was strong and did not pay attention to Zhang Meihua's question. After all, Zhang Meihua had asked Qin Yiru to come home with the excuse that she was sick in bed. Sick? What sick? You unfilial daughter, do you really want me to die early from illness? You're so useless. You didn't even discuss something as important as divorcing Yun Gang at home. If it weren't for Taijun bumping into Yun Jian in Longmen City, you wouldn't have come home even if you were beaten to death. If I didn't pretend to be sick and ask you to come home, you wouldn't even acknowledge your mother, would you? Zhang Meihua slammed her hand on the table and spat out a string of words. In fact, the daughter that Zhang Meihua had always hated the most was Qin Yiru. She had high hopes for her son, Qin Laiqian. When she named her son Qin Laiqian, she had hoped that he would be rich, and that he could earn big bucks in the future. Even if Qin Laiqian grew up to be a spineless coward, Zhang Meihua still thought highly of him. From Zhang Meihua's perspective, she was an old woman who favored boys over girls and valued the rich over the poor. Qin Yiru had not married well, but she had to support 2 children with both hands. Even food and clothing had become a problem. This made Zhang Meihua dislike her even more. In fact, Zhang Meihua had received the news that Qin Yiru was planning to leave the Yun family. However, she did not mention it, nor did she ask. What Zhang Meihua was most afraid of was that Qin Yiru would really bring the 2 children to stay at her parents' house shamelessly. Zhang Meihua even wondered why she had given birth to such a dumb daughter. If she had known that she was so useless, she would have killed her in the cradle. As for why she had pretended to be sick to call Qin Yiru back, it was because Zhang Taijun said that he saw Yun Jian at the auction. Not only that, Yun Jian had also bought a storefront with more than 10 million yuan. More than 10 million yuan. Zhang Meihua had never seen so much money in her life. Where did Yun Jian get the money from? She actually bought a lousy storefront with so much money? When Zhang Meihua first heard the news, she was flustered. Especially when she heard from Zhang Taijun that Yun Jian knew Mayor Gu. Forget that she knew Mayor Gu. Zhang Meihua was also Yun Jian's uncle-in-law. Not only did she not praise her uncle-in-law to Mayor Gu, she had even indirectly encouraged Mayor Gu to distance himself from Zhang Taijun. Zhang Meihua's mind you, Zhang Meihua's father, Zhang Meihua. Qin Yiru was reprimanded for no reason. Biting her lip, she finally said meekly, "Mom, it's my fault. She. Touch your conscience and tell me, how does your sister's family treat you? Your family is suffering and starving. Isn't it all because your sister lent you money to tide you over? But look at your family's Yun Jian, she actually went to the auction alone. I don't know where she got more than 10 million yuan, more than 10 million yuan. She only bought a storefront. Also, your family's Yun Jian knows Mayor Gu. She knows Mayor Gu because she's capable, but how did she repay your sister's family? Taijun had something to ask of Mayor Gu, but what did your daughter do? She actually encouraged Mayor Gu to ignore Taijun. I was wondering why our Qin family gave birth to such an unfilial descendant like you. What sins have I, Zhang Meihua, committed? Chapter 156. Qin Yiru grew more shocked as she listened to Zhang Meihua, her eyes widening in the end. She glanced at Yun Jian and stuttered to defend Yun Jian to Zhang Meihua. This? Mom. How can Xiao Jian have more than 10 million yuan? How does she know Mayor Gu? There must be some kind of misunderstanding here. How can your brother-in-law be lying? Zhang Meihua interrupted Qin Yiru angrily, glaring at Qin Yiru at the same time. Zhang Taijun, who had been staring at Yun Jian for a long time, finally spoke up, his tone heavy with concern. Sis Yiru, how can I spout nonsense? Your Xiao Jian is right here. What happened that day is clear as day. Ask her if you don't believe me. Since the matter has been explained
Zhang
clearly,
Taijun had actually thought of many solutions after he was ignored that day.
Then this matter
plan
could not go to waste.
Zhang Meihua's tone sounded as if Yun Jian had done something wrong and had to make up for it.
In the end, there was only one result, laughable, and that was that
her
the
explanation was meant
set
for
up with his
Qin Yiru,
friend would
but
face
they
the
actually
danger
thought
of
that she was
bankruptcy.
explaining to
Hence,
everyone.
Zhang Taijun
Why
came
should
up
I
with
help
a great
you?
idea.
Because when my
He came
mother
back
left
to
the
town
Yun
and told
family
Zhang
and had nowhere
Meihua
to go
everything
about
about
Yun
family,
Jian,
you did not
this
say
way
a word
Zhang
and did
Meihua
not
would
care
stand
about
up
her
for
life
him.
or death.
As for
Or
Yun
because
Jian's
you came
mother,
to collect
Qin Yiru,
debts from my
she was
mother
Zhang
when she was
Meihua's daughter
injured and
after all,
hospitalized, so
she
she
dared
dared
not
not disobey
disobey
her.
would not be able to
By
repay
then,
them.
as long as Qin
Yun
Yiru
Jian suddenly
reprimanded
narrowed
Yun
her
Jian,
eyes and
she
pointed
would
out
not be
Zhang
afraid that
Meihua's
the
and the
latter would
others' evil
refuse to
deeds.
help.
At the
Zhang
same time,
Taijun's
her
ultimate
aura
goal
suddenly
was for Yun
changed,
Jian to
and a
convince
sinister
Mayor
chill
Gu and get
assaulted
him to
everyone's
sign and
hearts.
stamp his approval document. Yun Jian was amused when she saw everyone's gaze on her. How could she not see through Zhang Taijun and Zhang Meihua's plan? In spite of it, Yun Jian was not flustered. Since she could do it, she naturally had a way to solve it. She looked at everyone coldly and her red lips curled up. That's right, I know Mayor Gu. After a pause, Yun Jian held back. She glanced sideways at everyone before looking at Qin Yiru and explained, lying smoothly, I bought the store on behalf of Mayor Gu. The money belongs to him too. It's inconvenient for him to show up, so I helped him bid for the store. When Yun Jian said that, Zhang Meihua's gaze on Yun Jian turned colder. She had thought that the money belonged to Yun Jian. If the money belonged to Yun Jian, no matter where it came from, it was reasonable that Yun Jian should be filial piety toward her as she was her grandmother. If Yun Jian was rich, Zhang Meihua's attitude toward her in the future would definitely improve. Yin to her. Now that Yun Jian had said so, everyone actually believed her. After all, she was just a student. How could she have more than 10 million yuan? However, Zhang Meihua did not intend to let go. Even if Yun Jian did not have money, she still knew Mayor Gu. Thus, Zhang Meihua immediately pointed at Yun Jian and ordered her aggressively, since you know Mayor Gu, how could you smear your uncle's reputation? Your uncle has always treated your family well. Chapter 157. Hearing Yun Jian's blatant words, everyone was stunned. They did not expect her to actually say it. In fact, everyone knew what they were talking about, but Qin Yiru would never say such things in front of her elders. Even when her family was so unbearable, Qin Yiru tolerated it as much as she could. Now that her daughter had pointed it out so blatantly, Qin Yiru felt a stinging sensation in her nose for some reason. Recalling the suffering she had gone through all these years and the indifference of her family, tears pooled in her eyes. As her tears fell uncontrollably, Qin Yiru turned around in a fluster with her back facing everyone and wiped her tears. There was silence. She thought about how she would have died long ago if she did not have Qin Yiru and Xiao Jian. Yun Jian did not say anything as she rubbed Qin Yiru's back to comfort her. In spite of it, Yun Jian did not think that she was wrong. If she did not say these things out loud, they might become the source of Qin Yiru's pain for the rest of her life. She might become Zhang Meihua and the rest's exploitation machine for the rest of her life. She knew that she had never experienced human nature and did not know how to face it, but this was the only thing she would not admit. If they showed weakness to Zhang Meihua and the rest, it would mean that they could be so weak. This was not an outcome that Yun Jian could tolerate. Zhang Meihua and the rest were stunned as well. Zhang Meihua froze not because she was ashamed or remorseful. It was because it was the truth, but it was not something to be happy about when it came from someone else's mouth. Hence, Zhang Meihua slapped the table even more angrily and shouted at Yun Jian, Because I gave birth to your mother. She's a piece of flesh that fell from my womb. Without me your mother won't exist. You won't be born either. So you have to listen to me. Zhang Meihua did not say it out loud, but everyone else had added it in their minds. As she spoke, Zhang Meihua even swept away the chicken feathers on the table and knocked them on the table. She then reprimanded Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru, look at your daughter. Siding with an outsider. You're still spouting nonsense. After saying this, Zhang Meihua completely ignored Qin Yiru's tear-stained face. She even criticized Yun Jian in front of Qin Yiru. Your daughter is so petty and unfilial. She's already like this at such a young age. What can a person like her do when she grows up? Zhang Meihua was indeed embarrassed from anger today. Zhang Meihua was a person who cared a lot about her reputation. Now that Yun Jian had revealed such a blatant truth in front of everyone, she naturally couldn't hold back her anger. After Zhang Meihua said this, Qin Junlan, who was beside her, chimed in. It was really one answering and one singing. Qin Liqian and the others were also on Zhang Meihua's side. Actually, Yun Jian's grandfather had passed away a few years ago due to illness. At that time Yun Jian was still very young. In Yun Jian's memory, her grandfather was very good to Qin Yiru and even more so to the original Yun Jian. Sometimes he would even secretly give all his hard-earned wages to Qin Yiru to subsidize her family's expenses. Of course, these things were hidden from Zhang Meihua. Later on, her grandfather, Qin Yiru, passed away. There was no one in the family who could support Qin Yiru anymore. Therefore, Qin Yiru rarely returned to her parents' home. Even after leaving the Yun family, she was unwilling to return to her parents' home. Instead, she chose to leave Xinjiang town with her child to seek refuge with her old friends. I don't need someone like you to judge whether I'm successful or not. Old hag, if you dare to say another word, I guarantee that you won't see the sun tomorrow. After comforting Qin Yiru, Yun Jian turned around and stared sharply at Zhang Meihua and the others. Yun Jian's eyes turned a strange dark red. She looked like a murderous demon. Qin Junlan, who was standing beside Zhang Meihua, felt her eyelids twitch when she saw Yun Jian like this. Qin Junlan was suddenly reminded of how Yun Jian had smashed a wooden stool in front of her in the hospital and how she had helped everyone dodge the sniper's bullet in the hotel. She pointed at Yun Jian and screamed at the top of her lungs. Because Yun Jian's gaze was just as terrifying as hers back then. What are you screaming for? Zhang Meihua's tone was obviously weaker when she spoke to Qin Junlan, but she still reprimanded her for screaming. Zhang Meihua even grumbled in her heart. Yun Jian only gave them a look. Look, did they have to be so scared? No matter what, Yun Jian was just a child. Mom, you don't know. She smashed a wooden stool in the hospital with one kick. When we met at the hotel last time, she even pushed us to dodge the sniper's bullet. Qin Junlan suddenly remembered and was scared, so she screamed. Chapter 158. Zhang Meihua and her friends were good with their words in the past when they bickered with each other. However, when they really got into a fight, they would turn weak immediately without any ability. To put it bluntly, they were people who loved to spout nonsense and put on airs when they were actually weak. Especially when Qin Junlan said that Yun Jian crushed a wooden stool with one foot and led everyone to dodge the sniper's bullet, Zhang Meihua and her friends could not help shuddering just from listening to it. To them, it was as miraculous as a group of sows flying in the sky. Since it came from Qin Junlan, Zhang Meihua and the rest did not doubt the authenticity of her words. Therefore, all of them stared at Yun Jian in fear as if they were trying to see through Yun Jian. Since you said that I'm petty and unfilial, I'll do as you say today. How about I break your necks one by one right now? Seeing how fearful these people were of her after hearing what she said, Yun Jian changed her strategy as a faint voice came from her throat. Of course, she would not really break all of their necks. Even if she wanted to, Qin Yiru would probably not watch her do it. They were her family after all. Even if she abandoned everything and no matter how disgusting these people were, the blood relationship could not be severed. As expected, after Yun Jian spoke, Qin Yiru, who had been quietly wiping her tears, cried out, "Xiao Jian, don't." Murder was illegal, not to mention that these people were related to her by blood. No matter how bad it was, Qin Yiru did not wish to see such an extreme scene happen. Qin Yiru could no longer be bothered with how Yun Jian had become so powerful. After so many days, Qin Yiru had gradually gotten used to Yun Jian's current personality. Whatever she said, she would definitely do it. Hence, Qin Yiru stopped Yun Jian right away. Yun Jian was unmoved by Qin Yiru's words. On the contrary, Yun Jian glanced sideways at Qin Yiru and told her with narrowed eyes, "Mom, stay out of this." With that, she glared daggers at Zhang Meihua and the others. Suddenly she extended her hand and conjured a small knife out of nowhere like a magic trick. With a sinister smirk, she approached the men with the knife in her hand. "If I stab all of you to death with this knife, I don't think you'll feel any pain before you die." As Yun Jian spoke, she rubbed the sharp tip of the knife with her fingers, uttering the terrifying words in a normal tone. Qin Yiru would probably feel bad if she attacked Zhang Meihua and her family. Even if she scolded them, it would be useless because Zhang Meihua and her friends were shameless people. In spite of it, Yun Jian had countless ways to deal with such situations. She could even force a brainwashed assassin to talk, let alone Zhang Meihua and the others. She intended to teach these people a lesson. You, what are you trying to do?" Qin Junlan was so scared that she subconsciously retreated. She sounded like she was about to cry. It was obvious that what Yun Jian had done previously made her tremble in fear. Zhang Meihua was indeed Qin Junlan's mother. Not only were their tones and words similar, but they were also equally timid. Zhang Meihua was scared out of her wits by Yun Jian's eerie and terrifying actions. She kept retreating. The group of people retreated until they reached the corner of the wall. They could no longer retreat any further and stopped. "It's good that you're standing there. Let's see if my knife can hit one of your heads like a flying knife." Yun Jian chuckled evilly. As she spoke, she suddenly held the knife in her hand. What are you doing? What you're doing is illegal." The last sound came from the group of people's screams. It was because the saber in Yun Jian's hand was already flying toward where they were with the last clang. Qin Yiru could not stop it in time. She shouted, "No!" and Yun Jian had already thrown the knife. After the screams, the group of people who were leaning against the wall opened their eyes in fear. Zhang Meihua looked up slightly and saw that the knife was embedded in the wall right above her head. Zhang Meihua was dumbfounded. The group of people heaved a sigh of relief. Just then Zhang Meihua, who was scared out of her wits, felt something warm flowing out from under her flowery pants. Everyone smelled the stench and looked over. They saw a yellowish liquid flowing out from under Zhang Meihua's pants. Everyone widened their eyes in shock. Chapter 159. Tsk Tisk. When Yun Jian saw this scene, she held her chin with her hand and sighed. Her goal was to scare them so that they would not dare to cause trouble for Qin Yiru in the future. However, he didn't expect Zhang Meihua to be so aggressive and fearless all the time. She only teased them a little and Zhang Meihua was so scared that she peed her pants. "Really? You can't judge a book by its cover. Let me tell you if today's incident happens again." Yun Jian glanced at the people who were paralyzed with fear. She paused and continued, "If it happens again, this knife will pierce through your heads. I, Yun Jian, am a woman of my words. If you don't believe me, wipe your heads clean and wait for me." Yun Jian realized that ever since she was reborn, she had done a lot of threatening and frightening things. If this had happened in her previous life, the group of people in front of her would have turned into corpses. However, her identity was different now and her situation was different. More importantly, she had her mother and brother. Especially in a society ruled by law, killing people was illegal. Her nature was slowly changing, it was just that Yun Jian did not notice it. After Yun Jian finished speaking, she tiptoed and took the knife from the wall above Qin Yiru. Then she turned and walked to Qin Yiru. She pulled Qin Yiru's hand and walked out. She did not want to stay here for a second longer. Presumably, Qin Yiru felt the same way. Seeing Yun Jian's actions, no one dared to make a sound. When they saw Yun Jian pulling Qin Yiru away, Zhang Meihua was like a balloon that had lost its air. She fell to the ground with a thump. It was only when they were far away from the Qin residence that Qin Yiru shuddered, tears streaming down her cheeks like a faucet. Yun Jian did not know how to comfort Qin Yiru. She placed her hand on Qin Yiru's back and rubbed gently to comfort her. Just when Yun Jian thought that Qin Yiru would be quiet for a long time, Qin Yiru suddenly spoke. She closed her eyes like she had made a decision before she sighed and said mournfully, "Xiao Jian, I want to go somewhere." Qin Yiru did not mention a word about Yun Jian's unusual skills. Yun Jian breathed a sigh of relief when she did not ask. Xinjiang Town, Mount Wui. Mount Wui was an ordinary mountain range that was located near Xinjiang Town. Near the Wui mountain was farmland, but there was a cemetery dedicated to the burial of the older generation after they had passed away. Yun Jian's grandfather, Qin Youfu, was buried here. When Qin Yiru was in Xinjiang Town, she would come here alone every few days to pay respects to her father who had been the best to her when he was alive. She would remove the weeds in front of his grave so that others would not mistake it as an untended grave. Life and death were like fleeting clouds in Qin Yiru's eyes. In the blink of an eye, her father had passed away for so many years. It was obvious that Ce did not plan to hide his identity from Yunjian since he admitted that Shuiying was his subordinate in front of her. Yunjian could not wrap her head around it. When Yunjian returned to school after the weekend self-study session, a girl rushed into the classroom just as she placed her bag on the table. This person was none other than Qin Sini, who had a carefree personality and was never overcautious. Since the kidnapping incident, Qin Sini had completely recovered. She ran to Yunjian and held up a form in her hand with a chuckle, telling Yunjian, "Ha ha ha, Jian, did you know? I heard from the English teacher in the office just now that some of the top students from DE Senior High School are going to be sent to a foreign school for a week as foreign exchange students. Our school has 5 spots and they've all been allocated to Year 3 students. I've been selected too. Your results are so good that you're already a candidate. This means that we can go abroad for further studies together." Qin Sini shook Yunjian's hand excitedly, overjoyed. Qin Sini was the English class representative. Her results were decent, but there were many others who were better than her. Nevertheless, it was a surprise that she was selected this time due to her high level of English. Yunjian did not express any joy or worry about the sudden news. When she heard that the students from DE Senior High School were going as well, she could not help raising a brow. However, before the teachers had time to think about it, Gu Junjian, who had already walked 2 steps past Yunjian toward the office door, suddenly turned around. With lightning speed, he clenched his fist and swung it directly at Yunjian. When the teachers in the office saw this scene, they were so frightened that they screamed. The strength of this sudden sneak attack was obvious. Was he planning to beat the thin and weak Yunjian into meat paste with this punch? The teachers could almost predict the tragic outcome. Teacher Yu's heart tightened even more. Yunjian was her student. If something happened to her in school, she had to take responsibility. Just when everyone was sure that Gu Junjian must have gone crazy and would suddenly throw a powerful punch at Yunjian and guarantee that Yunjian wouldn't be able to fight back and would be beaten to the ground. Yunjian's eyes suddenly sharpened. She flipped her hand and easily caught Gu Junjian's domineering iron fist. She kicked Gu Junjian to the ground with her leg and held Gu Junjian's arm with one hand. Just like the police, she pinned Gu Junjian to the ground. This action frightened all the teachers in the office. In their hearts, students were good at learning. Whoever was good at learning and studying would have a bright future. Some teachers even liked to pretend to be high profile in front of their students. For example, if a teacher forgot to bring her books during class, she would casually ask a student to run an errand for her. The student wouldn't dare to disobey because if the student didn't listen, the teacher would make things difficult for the student in the future. These teachers had never seen such a brutal scene, especially when Yunjian actually single-handedly took down Gu Junjian, who had a strong physique. The group of teachers suddenly became uneasy. Chapter 163. Just when the teachers thought that Gu Junjian would fly into a rage, they heard a deep and clear male voice. "Ah, good job." Gu Junjian retracted his arm. Yunjian did not stop him either. He stood up and laughed loudly, looking at Yunjian again. The person in the factory that day was really you. How could a normal person be so calm when faced with such a surprise attack and suppress him instead? Gu Junjian knew that he was not weak. He also knew how agile Yunjian was just now. Even if she had wanted to kill him just now, he probably would not have been able to retaliate. This thought deepened Gu Junjian's thoughts. Yunjian lowered her gaze. She did not expect Gu Junjian to make such a move, but since that was the case, she did not have to pretend anymore. "Why are you looking for me?" Yunjian pursed her lips and asked. "Let me introduce myself again. My name is Gu Junjian. I'm the captain of the country's advanced special forces." Gu Junjian was not afraid of revealing his identity in front of the teachers. As he spoke, he paused, then extended an invitation to Yunjian in front of all the teachers. "Now, on behalf of the country's advanced special forces, I would like to formally invite you to join us." Inviting Yunjian to join the country's advanced special forces. The teachers' jaws dropped, all of them tongue-tied in shock. Gu Junjian had claimed to be a police officer in front of the teachers, and now he was the captain of the special forces. He wanted to invite Yunjian to join them. Everyone knew that anyone who could be invited to join the advanced special forces would have a bright future that the teachers present could not compare to. Yunjian, she actually had the honor to be personally invited by Gu Junjian, the captain of the advanced special forces. Just when the teachers thought that Yunjian would immediately agree to Gu Junjian's request, she raised a brow and said, "I refuse." What? This exclamation came from Gu Junjian. One had to know that those who could enter the advanced special forces were the cream of the crop. It was an honor that everyone yearned for.
And she actually refused? Reason. Yun Jian wasn't in a hurry. In front of everyone, she used her leg to hook a stool in front of the teacher's desk and sat down. She crossed her legs and looked at Gu Junjian. If Yun Jian did such a thing normally, the teachers would definitely scold her severely. She was still so arrogant and despotic in the teacher's office. She didn't know her identity as a student. But now the teachers, who were usually dignified and proud, did not even dare to breathe loudly. Gu Junjian immediately understood what Yun Jian meant. He smiled again as he thought about how Yun Jian was so young, and yet she did not immediately agree to his request for fame and fortune. Thus he smiled and promised, "As long as you agree to join us, you can do whatever you want in Z country." Chapter 164. She agreed again? The teachers were still in a daze as they watched the scene unfold before them. Did that mean that Yun Jian would be a citizen of the country from now on? Even if her family background was poor, as long as she was a citizen of the country, these teachers would not dare to lay a finger on her. Welcome to the team. Gu Junjian was overjoyed when he heard that Yun Jian had agreed. From the exchange of blows with Yun Jian earlier, he could feel that Yun Jian alone was more powerful than all the young elites he had recruited from the team put together. How could Gu Junjian not be surprised that such a powerful person had joined them? Yun Jian nodded slightly and pursed her lips. Then I'll look for you on Friday after school. I'll introduce you to the young advanced special forces candidates that we've discovered, Gu Junjian continued. People of Yun Jian's age would definitely not become members of the advanced special forces right away after joining them. Usually, those who had just joined the organization were candidates. Of course, it was only a matter of time before young people with potential like Yun Jian would truly become National Advanced Special Forces after joining the organization. Yun Jian nodded again. Naturally, she had no objections. The teachers were still in a daze when Gu Junjian left the school after instructing their homeroom teacher, Teacher Yu. It had only been a short while and Yun Jian had become a member of the country's special forces. However, the teachers were not dumb enough to spread the news everywhere. After all, if they were the ones who spread the news, they would not be able to compensate for it even if they had 10 times the courage. Hence, other than the people present, no one else knew about what had happened in the office. Friday after school. Yun Jian walked out of the school gate with Chen Xini and Zhang Xiaofeng. Behind them was Ling Yichen. Just as they reached the school gate, Yun Jian saw Gu Junjian waiting for her in a flashy military jeep. When he saw Yun Jian, Gu Junjian honked his horn. Yun Jian turned to tell Chen Xini and the rest, "You guys go first." Then, under their watchful gazes, she walked towards the dark green military jeep. She opened the car door and sat in the front passenger seat. Then, under everyone's gaze, the military jeep slowly drove away and left their field of vision. Gu Junjian drove for a long distance, even out of the bustling city area and into the suburbs. Not long after driving out of the city's downtown area, Yun Jian saw a neat row of military garrisons in the forest. When they passed the guard post and entered the area, Gu Junjian got out of the car and walked over to open the door for Yun Jian. He said, "We're here. Come with me." Yun Jian nodded and followed Gu Junjian to a military training camp. Just as she opened the door of the military training camp, Yun Jian felt a sense of danger coming towards her. Without thinking, she reached out her hand and grabbed in front of her. A harmless dart with a broken arrowhead had deviated from its trajectory and was flying straight towards Yun Jian. However, Yun Jian caught it in the middle of her palm. It deviated from its trajectory again. I threw it wrong again. A sorrowful female voice was heard. Then a young girl about the same age as Yun Jian appeared in front of them. "Shuning, what's wrong with you?" Seeing this, Gu Junjian breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Yun Jian reacted quickly. Otherwise, even if the dart had no arrowhead, it would still hurt someone. He scolded the young girl. "Officer Gu, I didn't do it on purpose." Chuning pouted, feeling wronged. Suddenly, her eyes lit up and she looked straight at Yun Jian. She was overjoyed. Wow, is she the new little girl? In fact, the cross-country running training for Special Forces soldiers was somewhat similar to the running training for students during military training. However, the cross-country running required a lot of stamina. Hence, the runners had to have a lot of stamina to complete the entire run. After everyone had equipped themselves and was about to start the cross-country run, Chu Xiangnan did not forget to tease Yun Jian. He wanted to show off in front of the girl. "Little Yun Jian, you're new here. If you can't keep up, you'll have to run slower later." To Chu Xiangnan and others, Yun Jian was a newbie who had just joined, so she was naturally the weakest among them. At this moment, a voice interrupted them. "Is everyone equipped?" The person who spoke was the leader of the seven, Lu Shiyun. Lu Shiyun was the leader of the seven. This was decided before Yun Jian joined the team. Although Jiang Weiwei was the strongest among them, Lu Shiyun was relatively more mature. Hence, Gu Junjian made him the leader. Leader, we're ready. One of the boys replied with a bright smile. He even turned to Chu Xiangnan and teased, Chu Xiangnan, stop teasing little girls. Every time a new member joins the team, you'll nag for half a day. Little girls need to be protected. Why are you dawdling all day long? He did not even hear Yun Jian's heavy panting. Did that mean that Yun Jian was not tired at all? He was about to die of exhaustion, but this new little girl was walking so easily that it was as if she was just walking. Chu Xiangnan was running at the back. Because the route was straight and there were no trees around, he could clearly see the position of the person in front of him even if there were bends. Therefore he was running at the back. He watched as Yun Jian maintained a steady pace and overtook the people in front of her who were gradually slowing down. His heart was filled with shock. She was just a new member. Generally, the new members were the weakest. They would only improve after a period of training. Today was Yun Jian's second day at the training ground. At this moment, she had already overtaken everyone and was running in second place. She was chasing after the strongest person in the group, Jiang Weiwei. Chapter 168. Phew. Damn, Yun Jian is about to overtake Jiang Weiwei. Fang Xiaoran, who had been overtaken by Yun Jian, shouted loudly. He finally realized that he had lost his composure. Not talking while running was the basis for conserving energy. Fang Xiaoran obviously couldn't control himself. At this moment, Yun Jian was about to overtake Jiang Weiwei. When Jiang Weiwei heard Fang Xiaoran's complaints, she realized that Yun Jian was already right behind her. She frowned deeply. She was born into a military family and her ancestors were all soldiers or special forces. Her father was a high-ranking military officer and her mother was also an outstanding soldier. She inherited the family business and had been practicing her skills since she was a child. Hence, she was naturally the best among the group. Perhaps because of this, Jiang Weiwei had always looked down on Chuning and the rest. It was because in her heart they were not even her opponents. Jiang Weiwei was also a competitive person. She also looked down on Yun Jian, but now that the steady Yun Jian was about to overtake her, she couldn't stay calm anymore. Her pride wouldn't allow anyone to destroy it, let alone this newcomer Yun Jian. Jiang Weiwei sprinted even harder, and she gradually felt as if her feet weighed 1,000 pounds. Seeing that she was gradually slowing down and Yun Jian was about to catch up with her, Jiang Weiwei's vanity acted up. Just as Yun Jian was about to overtake her, she made an extreme move in front of everyone. She turned sideways and blocked Yun Jian's path. She reached out and slammed into Yun Jian. At this moment, everyone was already exhausted and Jiang Weiwei took advantage of the situation. A normal person would definitely fall to the ground after being hit by her. However, Yun Jian seemed to have predicted Jiang Weiwei's move. She dodged to the side the moment Jiang Weiwei turned her body to crash into her. At the same time, she reached out her hand to block with lightning speed. She had already slipped past Jiang Weiwei's side and ran to the first position. This unforeseen event caused the few people following behind to widen their eyes in shock. They were watching from afar but they could see everything clearly. The move that Yun Jian had just performed was the move that Gu Junjian had demonstrated to them earlier. They didn't even know this move, so how did Yun Jian learn it? Or rather, when Gu Junjian demonstrated to them, Yun Jian had not even joined the team yet. Could it be that she had long grasped the effective moves of these special forces soldiers? What they didn't know was that not only did Yun Jian know the moves of the special forces, she even knew the moves that the special forces didn't know. Jiang Weiwei's shock was no less than anyone else's. She was well aware of her own skills. Even an adult would have lost his or her composure, let alone a group of special forces candidates like them. Chapter 169. Yun Jian completed the 5 kilograms 5 kilometers off-road run in just 10 minutes. Gu Junjian was almost shocked. To be honest, he had trained quite a number of young talents. Moreover, all of the special forces that he had trained had become famous big shots in the end. However, he had never seen anyone with such amazing ability. Reporting, mission accomplished. Yun Jian reported when she reached the finish line and took off her uniform. You completed it, well done. This was the highest praise that Gu Junjian had ever given her. However, apart from Yun Jian, Gu Junjian's prediction was right. Jiang Weiwei came in second. Jiang Weiwei finished the entire run. By the time she reached the finish line, she was already panting from exhaustion. When she reached the finish line, she held onto the pole and panted.
This was a stark contrast to Yun Jian. Jiang Weiwei completed the 5 kilograms 5 kilometers off-road run in a short time. However, with Yun Jian's example as a lesson, her results were not good enough. The rest of the people also reached the finish line one after another. Chu Xiangnan was the slowest. Although he was much slower than the others, he also completed the run in 45 minutes. Obviously, the new morning run with weights was just the beginning. The rest of the morning and afternoon was still free practice. At 6 o'clock, Gu Junjian drove the jeep to the entrance of the training camp on time to send everyone home. Yun Jian and the others got into the jeep. Just as the jeep drove out of the sentry post, Gu Junjian suddenly stepped on the emergency brake. Yun Jian and the others were sitting at the back. Chu Ning and the others almost hit their heads on the glass window beside the jeep. "Officer Gu, what's wrong?" "What's wrong?" Chu Ning asked anxiously. Yun Jian saw a familiar black Lamborghini blocking the jeep driven by Gu Junjian through the glass window in front of the jeep from the back. She narrowed her eyes and her eyes lit up. The corners of her mouth unconsciously curled into a smile. Yun Jian opened the door and jumped out of the jeep. Under the gaze of several people in the jeep, she walked towards the black Lamborghini. Looking at Siyi's handsome face, which she hadn't seen in a long time, her lips curved into a smile that even she herself didn't notice. "Why are you here?" she asked. She knew that Siyi could find out that she was here just by moving his fingers. "Get in." Siyi tilted her head and looked at Yun Jian. Her gaze softened as she sized her up, as if she was looking at a rare treasure. Yun Jian smiled. She ran to the jeep and said to Gu Junjian, "My friend is here to pick me up. You don't have to worry about me. Go ahead." With that, she ran back to the Lamborghini and opened the door to the passenger seat. Like a little girl in love, she happily sat in the car. Yun Jian did not notice her actions at all. Then, the Lamborghini sped away under the gaze of Gu Junjian and the rest, leaving the group to let their imagination run wild. Chu Xiangnan in particular, wore a sad expression and sighed. "So Lil, sis Yun Jian is taken. I was thinking of wooing her." In the Lamborghini that was driving away, Yun Jian turned to look at Ce and asked, "When did you come back to Country Z?" "Just now." Ce paused and said something that made one's imagination run wild. "I came to look for you right after I got back to Longmen City." Ce did not actually say that he did not plan to return to Longmen City. He had stayed in Longmen City earlier because of the sandalwood box, and now that he had gotten it, he did not want to come back. He had no reason to come to a small place like Longmen City. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.